What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Apex, the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a banger interview today with Verhulst from TSM. It was awesome to have him back on. Second time on the show. First time was a long time ago. So it's basically like, it's really good to get all the updates from him. We talk about all the major stuff that's been going on. That's a little bit later. But the main story of today, Hal Zero and Jen Burton have signed to a new org. They are now with Saudi-based org Falcons. I think we all expected it. I think everybody in the know kind of saw this coming. But Enoch, from your perspective, how do you see the brand new move over to Falcons for the boys over there at the super team?
It definitely makes sense, and they're one of the few orgs that I think the majority of people can think of that would have the funds to be able to sign a team that is this much of a super team. Because I mean, all of these players with all the success that they have had, and the social media presence that they've garnered, that commands a fairly nice big chunk of change. And so this is going to be a super team that now has the super funds, and it's going to be interesting to see where this team goes and if they're going to be able to live up to the expectations that everybody is going to have of them. Is just because anything less than first place for this team is going to be viewed as a failure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and we're also going to get into our Pro League Split 2 preview here in just a moment. But I love the point you just brought up that teams are going to be gunning for this team. Like, this is the super team. That's what they were being called before, any org announcement was made. And their first game in scrims, they famously win that first game. Zero's looking at the camera. He's smirking. Like, people know that this is the team to beat. And for them, they've got to be in a situation where there's a ton of pressure. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to affect them at all, because they've arguably been the top two teams for, at least in NA forever. So it's going to be, something not very new to them, but they are going to be a team that everybody's kind of looking at, gunning at, and trying to make sure that they can come out on top. But no, it's very big. I think it's also very big for the esport in general to be able to have an org with that kind of money backed into it, to see where this esport will go in the future. If an org like that is seeing value in the esport, then who knows what that leads to the ALGS for in the future. But it'll definitely be interesting. And like you said, there was just no way any other NA org could put up the bill for this kind of roster. Like, it's a massive, massive bill for any NA org to do. Any NA org to do that right now. And so, yeah, it's the biggest news. I think most people knew where this was going, but there was a lot of people who were still speculating potentially Red Bull. I saw some people saying 100 Thieves. I just never thought that was a possibility, but now it doesn't matter. They are now signed with Falcons. So we'll get more to them in a little bit in the Pro League preview. Speaking of Saudi, we also got to talk a little bit about the Esports World Cup qualifier. Our two teams that walked away from that, Tripods and XSET. Not XSET, XSET, EXSET, XSET, and Tripods are your winners. Tripods comes away with the victory. There was a lot of weird stuff going on with this tournament format. There was a lot of frustration from a lot of the teams involved. Some of the lobbies were super scuffed. I guess they were only playing 4 games at a time. There was just a lot of frustration, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Tripods, XSET, they're moving on to the Esports World Cup. Enoch, your thoughts on the qualifiers?
Yeah, obviously there have been many better brand tournaments before. I saw a lot of complaining on Twitter when I got the chance to hop on and look. Apparently there were some 8-team lobbies, and it's just like playing an 8-team lot. To put it in comparison, people think that scrim quality goes to absolute shit if there's anything less than 20 teams in a lobby. And so for you to have to play an 8-man lobby is just a completely different Apex than the Apex that you spend the most of your time preparing to play. And so definitely could have been better ran, no doubt. But you absolutely love to see it for both of these teams. Tripod's a team that made Pro League, but people, I feel like we're still doubting this team's ability to really compete at the highest level. and they show out and show up and walk away with a nice trip to Saudi Arabia, and they're going to have the opportunity to compete for some serious money. Absolutely, no doubt. And with that opportunity, it's huge because it'll attract a lot of orgs to that team. Because now instead of it just being a team that's playing for Pro League, you have a team that has the opportunity to walk away with substantial amount of prize money, which incentivizes orgs to want to work with your team. And so you love to see it for those boys. And then also with the former Exit team who have picked up Reptar, who was going to join a Complexity, but then decided that it wasn't the right time for him to make his return back to comp. And so we saw that Lou goes and fits that role. And so this role comes along, and I think it's like an almost perfect fit for Reptar, because Reptar, Nocturnal, and Fun all at one point lived together. And so these boys definitely have like that brotherly bond going. And I think this is a team that we're going to see stick together for quite some time. And hopefully this would just be the beginning of the success that they'll be able to have. Because while they didn't have the best performance as a team as of late, this is a team that was once viewed on as like one of the most, if not the most dominant team for Pro League. And you add Reptar, who has been on a similar team when Complexity was having their run way back when, and it's gonna be cool to watch.
Yeah, and both of these teams have gone through their fair share of struggles too, right? Like X said, obviously they don't qualify for LAN. I think they were the final spot, or they were a few points away from the final spot. They don't get to go. That was tough because they were viewed as one of the most consistent teams in Pro League. And then you have Tripods when Nick Merckx was still on the team, missing Pro League by 1 point and then barely scraping into Pro League by 1 point. So they've had a lot of craziness going around. Onmu becomes the fill-in for Nick Merckx, and he's had his own fair share of struggles because at Champs, I believe they got 40th when he was still with the 100 Thieves. So he had something to prove. So getting to see two teams that were battling a lot of adversity be able to make it was awesome to see. And also the game that got Tripods in, I think they still would have gotten pretty damn close if they don't win this game. But the final game that they win, go check out that POV. I think if you go look at Deeds' YouTube, you can see it there. But the final game, I don't even know how they won. There was like 17 ults, 30,000 abilities. They're at the bottom of a staircase. Everybody else is up top, and somehow they just squeak their way through, shoot their guns, win, and are able to punch their ticket, I think, by 9 points ahead of Native Gaming. So it was a crazy game and just an overall crazy tournament for them. But now the Esports World Cup has two teams that have a lot of past experience when it comes to major moments in Apex Legends esports. So very excited to see both of those teams get in. Shout out Onmu, that is my guy. Anybody who's listened to the show a long time knows that. So very exciting stuff. We'll see how it goes in the Esports World Cup. Hopefully things run a little bit smoother as we get closer to the tournament. I'm hoping that that's what ends up happening here, that it was kind of just like, okay, first kick at the can, trying to smooth everything out. Let's hope they get there, because like you said, there was eight team. If you're the 8th team in an 8th team lobby, that sucks. That's just not a good look. It doesn't feel good. Not going to feel good whatsoever. So let's see if they can clean that up a little bit. Okay, ladies and gents, without further ado, let's get into our Pro League split number 2 preview. And there's a lot of stuff we want to talk about when it comes to teams, players, roster mania, all of that good stuff. But I think we have to talk first about the most major change that's happening. This could be looked at in the future as a pivotal change in Apex Legends esports. The POI draft has entered. It had a very weird intro into the game. It is here for now. Enoch, we forgot to talk about it last week in all of the stuff that we were talking about before, but let's kind of break it down. What are your thoughts on this POI draft, and how do you see it moving forward?
Yeah, it is definitely a thing that was looked upon very poorly from a lot of people in the competitive scene, mostly all of whom who had really good POIs that they wanted to keep playing from. But then a lot of people were excited to see it and see things get shaken up. I do think that is incredibly healthy for the game, and especially comp as a whole, as at the highest level, you have teams that have been playing from the same POIs with the same individuals doing the same rotates uh, over and over and over again for like years now. And so instead of it being like, okay, who has the best POI and then knows how to play it like their specific POI the best, it's okay, which team is the most adaptable and which team is able to win from a different POI each week if that ends up being the thing that takes place. Um, but it forces teams to be able to play from different parts of the map, and it makes it a lot more balanced in terms of how like you can't really like if you're an unsigned team who's like just walked into pro league. There's like very few POIs that you could have played for, and then everybody thinks you're like griefing the team who has already established that as their spot. And it can really just be hard to like be a good team coming in and then having to play from like bad POIs. And so it definitely makes the playing field a lot more even for all of the teams across the board. And I think it'll really show who the best teams are being able to play from all the different places, more so than teams who land at the juicer POIs, get the best loot, get the best rotates, and then have that advantage on top of all of the ones that they have innately as a team.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I initially heard about it, my initial reaction was like, no, I don't want this, because when you go to a LAN and you experience the contests, there's nothing like it, especially early game for BRs. There's a lot of downtime in those early portions, so having a good contest early on definitely keeps the excitement flowing in the building, and I think it keeps the excitement flowing when you're watching from home as well. You just want to see what happens with those contests. But as time has gone on, I've kind of turned a little bit of my opinion. I still have some weird things about it. Like the first thing that kind of strikes me a little bit odd about the POI draft when I was reading through the rules is that it says that each week in Pro League, it'll be completely randomized what place you're going to get picked in the draft. And I do think that there's probably some potential for a team to get a bad placement over and over and over again, which could really suck, because if you're consistently just getting bad like draft position, that could definitely harm your chances of making it to a LAN. I don't know how the randomization goes, and I'm hoping that they can limit that as much as possible. But the way they worded it with it just being completely random, I have to assume that at some point there's going to be a time where we hit a crossroads and we're like, hey, this is a good team that is getting shafted over and over and over and over again. So let's hope that that doesn't happen as much. The other
I
worry I
don't think
have
that's
about
really
it,
going to be an issue.
you don't think so?
Just yeah, well, I mean, like I believe that the way that it is it's a snake draft of them picking, like so, like the way that at least I'm pretty sure this is how it works is that they have all the teams, like they have the row, and then you get a pick. You have both maps that you get a pick from, and so with your first draft pick, you can either pick, like the World's Edge or Storm Point, and then it's a snake draft. So if you get one of the first picks in the first round, your second round pick is going to be later.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think with the snake draft effect, it balances out it makes it so that there's not really like a bad draft spot, because it means that if you don't get like the best spot on either of the maps, you're going to get a fairly decent spot on both the maps.
Yeah, that's fair. I just worry about like, what if you get stuck? So there's 40, it's 40 picks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you get stuck smack dab in the middle at like 20,
then you just get to pick back-to-back spots. And so you get theoretically,
I see what you're saying.
You get the best second round pick.
Okay. I definitely
Your pick number 20 and 21.
Okay.
That's not that bad.
That's not that
I don't
bad.
think it is.
That's not that bad. I guess what I'm thinking is the middle of so it wouldn't be 20, it'd be like, what if you got like 10?
I think it's actually like the teams that get the first picks have the earlier you pick, I think the worse off it is for you.
Because you're going to get one good map POI.
Yeah, like the super juicer POIs aren't that much super juicer, at least at this point, than the other ones, and so you get one good POI, and then you get one that's just
bad. Yeah. I phrased my thing wrong. I meant not 20. I meant like smack dab in the middle at like 10. So you would go Like because you would get probably no, maybe you're right. Maybe you would get a decent POI no matter what. Because even if you're at 10, theoretically, you're probably getting an okay POI at one, probably an okay POI at the other. Yeah, I think you're right. The snake draft definitely balances that out. I hadn't really thought about it that much. But yeah, I think that works. That works. We'll see how it goes, though. We still have to see how it goes. We'll see how teams kind of adapt to it. The other my other big point about it, why I'm kind of on the fence, is I really need to see them bring it into the broadcast or bring it into the LAN experience when it eventually does happen. Because what I think it does is it makes a very well informed and good enjoyer of Apex Legends esports, somebody who's watched a long time, it adds another layer, right? Like that's fun for them. They can figure out where teams are picking, where they're landing, how good they're doing at certain positions, how bad they're doing at others. But for a casual viewer, I do think taking away contests is a massive blow because there's going to be a little bit more downtime, I think, in the overall watching experience. And if you're just trying to get into the sport, having no contests at the beginning might be one of those things that has you kind of a little bit bored at the beginning. Now, if you can make it to the middle / end, then that's fine. But I do think it makes a more well-informed fan of somebody who's already been watching for a long time. But there's a chance that people could tune out if you're brand new or maybe casual and you miss out on those opportunities to see those early game fights. But if they can introduce a way to where it gets into the broadcast and they do it well as at a LAN where you can kind of see the drafts on the board. Right now, I think all they've been doing is going into a Discord and they have one team representative go in, pick their spot, and then it's kind of just said at the beginning of the show. I would love to see them kind of break it down as it goes along. This is very early. This is the first split they've ever had it, so you can't blame them too much. They're kind of just introducing this right now, but we'll see how it goes. I've also seen a lot of pros talking about the fact that a lot of these POIs are extremely unbalanced, and we'll see what they do with that moving forward in the future with maybe moving certain POIs to like high tier loot, moving others down to like medium tier loot. We'll see how that goes, but that's kind of where we're at right now. It doesn't really matter how we feel because it's happening, and it is going to add a very, very different fold to the ALGS. So with all that underway, all of the major stuff, let's start getting into all of these teams, Enoch. We're going to go through each group individually and kind of talk about all the storylines from each group. So we're going to kick it off with Group A. We've got Falcons, SSG, E8, Oxygen, XSET, Yup, Most Hated, CCE, Weave, and the Tripods. And I think the major storyline from this group is obviously Team Falcons. We talked about them getting signed before, but this team is bringing the firepower. This is going to be that team that everybody's looking at. And if it's not at least in your top 5 in Pro League, I think you're probably throwing.
Yeah, if you don't have them in top 5, it just nonsensical. Absolutely nonsensical.
They're just that good. Just on paper, they are that good. It's going to be tough to beat this team.
On paper, it's like the best team that I think you could possibly have created. Like, I don't think that. I mean, we could look it up, but I'm pretty sure they're all top 5 have to be like highest earning Apex players.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure.
And then just like you got them all in.
Yeah, and you got them all on the same team, and it has the potential to be really silly, but on the flip side of it, it has the potential to go really poorly.
Yeah,
because I feel like if they have like a couple bad games, and you get Hal pissed off, and you have Zero pissed off, and if they're not pissed off at the same things, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it could go pretty south. But I think that I don't think that's really going to be a thing that's going to happen, because I think that Hal wants to win more than anything else, and I think he'll realize that like the best thing that he can do if he wants to win is to like fall in line and just do whatever Zero wants. And I think Hal's going to be able to do that, no doubt.
Yeah, I guess the only real question mark you have going into this team is that the POI draft is changing their position every single time. If this was any traditional version of the ALGS Pro League,
They
I
would have
think
whatever POI they
they
want.
would have whatever they wanted
Without
because
question.
who are you fighting? Nobody's
Nobody's
fighting that.
contesting them.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Oh,
that's
that's
really
yeah.
the only question mark is
It's
how
actually
that.
like that actually is like low, like, and that's why Hal's probably like the main guy who was pissed off because he's like,
Yeah.
"Yo,
He was
the
leading the
heck?
charge.
I made a super team, and now you're gonna take away my POI buff? What the
Yeah.
heck?" And, yeah, but no, nobody was challenging that team anywhere. Those boys could go wherever they want, and I don't think there's anybody that was gonna try to take a 3v3.
Yeah, no, 100%. But this, I think if there was a percentage marker on the potential of this going poorly, I wouldn't have it very, very much because even if that instance happens that you were talking about where they have a couple bad days and things aren't going well, traditionally, Hal has had those with TSM and they've always found a way to bounce back. And I think at the end of the day, talent alone will carry them, into the upper portions of the league no matter what. I think they'll always find a way with just their pure talent. As far as, if they want to continue teaming, if things, really don't go well, I just can't see them breaking away with how much talent is available at this table. I just don't see a possibility. I think it's a sure lock. I know it's very hard to say that nowadays with some of the teams that we've seen not make it, like Optic and Xset last split, but I feel like this is a for sure lock to make it into Pro League. And I don't think there will be a single person out there who doesn't have them going. So other teams in this group, there's a lot of other big ones here. Any team that stands out to you on paper, Enoch?
Dude, I'm gonna be honest. I am really excited to see what this iteration of E8 is going to look like. You've got Zach joined alongside Luxford and Slayer. Slayer is somebody who is very clear that he knows what he's doing. He can shoot his gun, and now he's going to be unleashed a little bit out of that caustic prison and be able to really just show out and show the talent that he has. And Luxford is a guy that we've talked about, I think, a few times on the show about his individual skill level as a player. And when we had Naughty on, Naughty had very, very, very high praises of Luxford. And so I feel like this is the best opportunity that could have come along for him, as well as Slayer, and then as well as for Zach. And I think it's a team that's already showing that they mesh well together. And it'll be fun to see where they end up going. I have this team going top 5. And it'll be fun to watch them as the season goes on.
It's crazy what happened with E8 this offseason because it started off with all of this drama, Zach going on stream, talking about the situations that they had playing out. And then all of a sudden they all just kind of fell through. And now he's struggling to find a new roster. And I've been like, their scrims, they've been playing real well. Like, I don't know how this has happened, but it seems like every single player from that original and coach from that original E8 roster has found like a good, very good home that they can, just go into this next split and really show what they can do. Zach's been playing great. I think Slayer's going to be bounce back player of the split. We talked to him last week. It seemed like he was very locked and kind of understood. And now that he's moving away from the anchor role and going back into more of a traditional, fragger, I think we're going to see a different version of him going into Split 2 Pro League. So I 100% agree. I'm excited to see what E8 can do. The team I'm looking at is actually Space Station Gaming, SSG. Lots of behind the scenes drama. There's been some beef going on with Phony. And a lot of people are kind of against him right now, which is super odd, but it's just the way some things happen sometimes. Phony obviously had a weird situation with Snipe Down when FaZe fell apart. And he kind of went after Snipe a little bit. And I think it's fair for people to have their criticisms of Phony. But for Phony, I'm looking at this and they have arguably one of the best pickups in the offseason with Koifel joining the team. It was something that they desperately needed to help them get some kills. And if he wants to play the villain role, I'm down. I'm down to have the villain role. He's arguably one of the best IGLs in NA, in my opinion, anyway. He consistently plays well, and we need a villain. We need a villain. Let it be Phony. I think he can do it. And with this roster, I really think they can make things happen. Phony, Zainu, Koifel just sounds like a roster that gets made
It's
on
dangerous.
like Reddit. Yeah,
That's dangerous.
It's dangerous. Very dangerous. And now we've got villain Phony. I'm ready to see some villain phony. I want to see what happens here.
I will say, after looking at this again, I do think that Group A is the best group in terms of
Yeah,
most talent. Because like when you look at that top row of Falcon, Space Station, E8, those, in my opinion, are all basically like guaranteed top 10. Like those are all three land teams, in my opinion. Then you got Oxygen, which they have the addition of Frex. We'll see how that ends up going. And then you got Xset. But even like the bottom row, you got Yup, which I would say is probably like the weakest team here of Duplex, Xennial, and Osivian. But even in their own right, like Duplex, you have a ton of experience. Xennial, a ton of experience. Osiv, not the most experienced in comp, but he's an absolute shooter. And I think he'll adapt very, very quickly. And then you look over, you got Most Hated, or which is like the former Nine Lives Boys, which that is a team that not too many people want to be fighting in the 3v3. You got the Rampart Squadron from CCE UCX with Trev Sachs and the boys. You got Weave, which is a group of incredibly talented shooters coming out of CCE. This will be their first pro league split. And then you have Tripods, who you actually have the two of the EWC qualifiers in this Group A. It's a lineup.
it's a lineup.
Definitely, you definitely cannot make the argument that Falcons got put in the easy, because I know like there's been a couple times in Pro League Pass where you'd look at TSM's group and you'd be like, okay, come on, man, like that's like, come on,
what is this?
like that group? Like, I mean, we're just trying to give him land, right? But like this time, it's like, okay, yeah, you can't say that they gave him the easy road.
No, yeah, it definitely not. Like, I think the biggest question marks here too are Xset and Tripods, the team that just went into the Esports World Cup qualifier. You're thinking to yourself, okay, well, these two teams, we'll see how it goes. Tripods wasn't there last split. Xset didn't make it. They were the first team out, but you just saw them play this weekend, and they both got the top two spots. So I 100% agree. I think Group A is the best one. I think Group B is close, but there's just some question marks, and we'll get to them in a little bit. I just wanted to talk about one of my big surprises coming out of this group. I think it's going to be Tripods. I think Tripods is going to be the group that surprises people. A lot of people forget that Onmu, during COVID, there wasn't like a LANs, but they did have like an ALGS tournament that he won with Kungarna, and he was with that 100 Thieves squad for a while. I don't think he gets talked about enough as like a very good IGL because he kind of plays like that zone style. But I think with this roster, it's kind of unlocked something, and he had to battle through the trenches, man, through CC to get back over here, makes it in by 1 point, and already they're making big waves, big splashes in the Esports World Cup. So I think Tripods is a team that's really going to surprise some people. And I agree with you. The teams at the bottom of this group here are nothing to laugh at, nothing to slouch, like no slouches here. So yeah, I think Group A is very dangerous. And even for the better teams, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to kind of come out of here. The only one I'm a little worried about is Oxygen Esports, because they didn't have their greatest showing in split one. And, they lose Reeds. They bring in Frex. Is that going to be a big enough change for them to kind of do what they need to do? They were one of the best 3v3 fighting teams that we had seen over the last couple of splits. Will that continue? Will they be able to fight? Frex was with Space Station last split, and they had trouble fighting a little bit. I'm sure that's not all on him. But I just want to see what happens with Oxygen. I do have a little bit of worries about Oxygen Esports. Any last things before we move into Group B, Enoch?
That's about all I have for Group A. It's definitely one that I think definitely earns the title of Group of Death.
Okay. All right, so let's move on into Group B here. We've got Moist, LG, TSM, Complexity, Skidmark, Eternal EC, Ape Gang, The Edgers, NGNL Esports, and Team Board. Still a lot of heavy hitters in this group. I don't think it reaches the level of Group A, but we still got a ton of heavy hitters here. I actually have my winner from Pro League in this group. But Enoch, any of the teams you think are the team you want to talk about here from Group B?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to talk about Luminosity. I think that they're one of the big winners of this roster mania with the pickup of Sykes. I think he's just like the perfect fit that Sweet needed in order to really just take this team to the next level and really make them I would say like a favorite to win land, in my opinion, or at least a favorite to have an absolute dominant pro league. You got Funk now with Sykes, and I think that just the dynamic between Sweet and Sykes is just going to be really strong, and I think we'll see a little bit less yelling from Sweet now that he doesn't have Slayer as his basic like whipping post.
Yeah.
Another team that I think is gonna be really that you're really gonna want to keep your eye on is TSM. You got Verhulst and Reps that are going to be taking on the IGLing. And it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out and whether which one will emerge as like the main IGL. Just because I really don't see co-IGLing being successful unless you have a designated like, okay, once we get to end game and like we need to make these calls, like this is the guy in charge. Because once you get to like those late games, every like millisecond counts. And so being able to have somebody who just makes the call and everybody does it as a team is just so crucial. And so that's definitely going to be something that this team is going to have to figure out. But I do think it's going to be a strong team. It'll probably take them a little bit to get going, so I wouldn't expect the fastest start from them. But this is going to be a team that should heat up as the season goes on. And then last team that I'll talk about, I'll just round out like just the big three, at least in my opinion. Which it's weird that I'm saying big three and not even including Skidmark in that, but Moist Esports, I think we're going to see another dominant performance from them. This is a team that was basically just completely unaffected from roster mania. They got what they got. They like what they got, and they're just going to keep pushing. Waltzy Guild to just absolute like roller phenoms, and then you got a talented player MT with them. That's a dangerous team. And then I'll just lastly talk about Skidmark because I think that this is actually a team that's going to be one of the best in all of NA. You got dropped and knocked returning with Shuby, with Raven as their coach. And I think that the combination and the duo play that we're going to see from Dropped on the Hound and Shuby on Bangalore is going to be some of the best out of any team that we're gonna watch. Shuby is one of the best controller Bangalore players in the game, point blank period. He's out at Caustic Prison, now back on his main, and he's playing with Dropped, who's mechanically just exceptional. And that little duo with having knocked on the Anchor Cat is just going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Skidmark can do, and I really hope their name is actually Skidmark and not SKD Mark because that's going to be a tough look for the boys here. But I think Skidmark is one of those teams that if you're looking at a team that doesn't have an org right now, that will probably have an org by the end of the split or at least by LAN, that's a team I'm looking at. I mean, they have the championship pedigree. They have the guys who have been there before. And then Shuby coming over to this roster with Raven as a coach. That's another interesting aspect of this whole thing to me is how good is Raven. And it's not to say that like he wasn't good with TSM, but I'm just super interested to see what he can do with this roster because we've seen Raven do well with the best player in the game. And I want to see what he can do with players who are definitely still very good and have very, are exceptional in what they do. But I just want to see, I'm interested to see this. I think a lot of people look at Raven as the best coach in NA. And I just want to see how this all works out. But I do think they will have an org by the end of this. I think this team's too good to not end up making LAN and having an org. I'll go over to Complexity real quick because you kind of touched on the other ones. Complexity is super interesting to me, and they're one of my big questions. I have a few questions that I'll say at the end of the preview, but Complexity didn't make any changes. No roster mania changes. Obviously, last split, they went into the split being a gigantic question mark. Not a whole lot of people were talking about them, and they surprised everybody. They came in and they dominated. A lot had to do with Monsoon and his crazy Sentinel plays. Just very, very good. overall team. And adding Lou, having Kimchi, who was the coach before, he steps into play. They started off Pro League very, very hot. I believe at one point they were either first or second, and they were dominant. They were playing very, very well. Unfortunately, they get to land. Things don't go the way that they would like to for them. It didn't go as I was hoping. They were my team last split, and it just kind of fizzled out. It just felt like they were getting placement, but they weren't getting any kills. And I thought maybe they would try to make a move and see if they could find somebody who could add a little bit more firepower to the team. They opted not to, at least for right now. So I'm excited to see if they can repeat. I think they have the ability to. If you can do it once, you could do it twice. I think they could do it again. But there are a lot of very good teams that have formed from Roster Mania, and all of the teams that came in from all of the qualifiers are very good as well. So I see them right now sitting at that 9, 10, 11 range. I don't know if I'm willing to put them any higher than that, which hurts because I really enjoyed watching them last season or
And the
last split.
Sentinel.
Huh?
But they are no longer the Sentinel team.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I feel
We'll
like
get to them.
the DSG boys kind of took it over. They said, "Hold up, that looks pretty fun right there."
Yeah, and they're hitting it. So yeah, I just have a lot of questions with Complexity. I don't know exactly where I sit with them. The other team that I think could really surprise some people is the Edgers with Hambino, Chase Mob, and Presley. We had Presley on the show. We kind of talked about it. They won. I think you had to win one of your days in the qualifier. They won theirs. I think they won the first one, and they had a lot of downtime in between. But this is a very solid squad. This is a very good team, and we had a lot of challengers teams come on the pod before Pro League in Split 1, and they didn't do too well. Like there were a few teams that had some decent days, but they didn't really get higher than like a 20th or something like that on the overall standings. But I think the Edgers have the talent and they have the ability to surprise some people. I'm not going to go out on a limb like I did with Temper and say they're going to land. But I do think the Edgers have the ability to be at that like 13, 14, 15 range and really get a lot of like a head of steam going into champs. So I'm excited to see what they can do. I do want to go back to TSM and something that you were talking about last split. We saw FaZe try to run the co-IGL, and the first match day it worked. Every day after that, it did not work. And I'm really hoping before Saturday we can get a clear defining IGL on this team. I would feel a lot more confident moving forward. But I think they're a big question mark. They have a lot of talent on this team. They added Zap, they added Talmadge as their coach, but there still is, like, when you lose the greatest player to play, arguably, there's going to be at least some regression. And I'm just interested to see how they bounce back from it. I really want to see whoever's IGL, whether it's Reps or if it's Verhulst, if they're sitting at that 10th range midway through the season, how they react to that. I think Hal was always able, even when they were struggling, to bring them back to a place where they could at least be like, all right, we're going to land. Everything's going to be all right. Even when they had bad land finishes, they were always just like, okay, going into next season, we're going to be good. I want to see how they do this. And I'm also interested to see how long TSM is willing to continue the experiment if things don't go well at first. So giant question mark for TSM for me. But Verhulst does answer a lot of those questions in this upcoming interview. So you're going to want to stick around for that. Enoch, anything else from Group B before we move on into our final group?
I think we about covered it up.
We got it. Let's move into the final group here. We've got Group C. This one is interesting as well. We've got Cloud9, Disguised, Liquid, Furia, Vanity, Native Gaming, Oblivion, Flat, Stallions, and Team Temper. This one, no disrespect, I see as one of the weaker groups compared to Group A and Group B. But there's still some heavy hitters at the top, obviously with Cloud9, Disguise, Liquid, and Furia. E, what is the team that you're looking at from Group C right now?
Yeah, it's really just gonna. I mean, Cloud9, Disguised, Liquid, and Furia. At least, like, if we're looking at the performances from previous splits, these four teams should just own the rest of everybody in this group. Definitely, I think gaming flat, former gaming gladiator team. I think they should have a good chance to have a good pro league, especially being in this group. But I think you're going to see Disguise have a pretty dominant showing. Cloud9 is also showing that they're just a team that's going to be getting better and better. But yeah, I think it's just hard not to look at the first four teams and then just view them as not being a little bit of like just leaps and bounds on a different level than the rest of the teams in this. And yeah, I would definitely say that this is like we looked at it and it was kind of hard to distinguish between which one is better, Group A or Group B. I don't think there's much competition for which is the easiest group.
And it's going to be great when Group C just dominates the other two groups, and we're like,
yeah,
holy
which
shit.
I mean, if that happens, I'm going to be stoked because I mean, this is I would not be upset with any of these teams doing really well.
Yeah. I think the first team I want to talk about, I got to talk about it. It's my group. It's my team. Sorry. Cloud9. Throw your nines up. Cloud9 is my team this split. I'm not even going to watch a single day of Pro League before I decide. Last Pro League split, I waited, I think, till after day 2. I'm not waiting. Cloud9, throw your nines up. That's my team. I'm super excited to see how they do this, because there was a lot of weird things that happened that led to them getting into LAN with that regional final. Obviously, a Destroyer 2009 almost helping them get in because they got to play again on that other day. And they were able to get into the LAN from there. But Cloud9, they get, I think, what was it, 4th or 5th at LAN? I don't remember exactly.
Something like that.
Something like that. They were up there at the top, and they were able to do really, really well. And I'm excited to see how they use that moving forward into split number 2. I love this team. I love Naughty to death. I think they can do it. Saucer, they didn't have a great showing at the Esports World Cup qualifier, but Saucer already came out and said, those were some of my worst calls of all time. And I'm here to say, just get your bad games out of the way before what really matters. And that's Split 2 Pro League. We're trying to win a LAN here. Okay, we're trying to get some trophies in that trophy case for Naughty and the boys over at Cloud9, Chaotic, and Saucer. So I'm excited to see how they do this. I think people are going to look at them a little bit differently. When they entered Split 1 Pro League, I think people were looking at them as, okay, that's a team that has names on it, but let's see if they can actually do something. And then they proved to everybody that they could do something. So I'm ready to see how they bounce back and come in here in Split 2. Enoch, I'm sure you really want to get into the DSG boys.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a team that they just have more time under their belt. Designful, it was looking like there was a chance that he was going to be leaving to TSM. He decides to stay, keeps the vibes right. It's a team that has been 2 fights away from 2 different LAN wins, and they should be able to put it all together this split. And I would say that they're, in my opinion, one of, if not the best chance to beat the super team, just because based off the premise of like, yes, you might have more experience and more W's and more just like overall wins and Falcons, but with Apex, it's not always about having the most talent on the team. It's about playing well as a team together, and I don't think that there's many teams out there that play as well together as DSG does. Another team that I'd want to mention from this group that I think is going to be a team that you're going to want to keep your eyes on is Native Gaming. And this is RKN, Rambo, and McLovin. This is a very, very different Native than we had seen previous season, as Rambo was, I believe, a late addition. And now he's one of the only people from that from that roster that we're going to be seeing on this team going into this season. He'll be joined by RKN, who he had previously had an extreme amount of success with when they were on the guard together, when they were farming the crypto meta. And they will be joined by McLovin. McLovin was the game changer for EEC last split. He joined and was IGL on them, and they ended up doing really, really well. And so I'm sure that he and RKN are both going to be like throwing some input, and it'll be interesting to see who's going to emerge as like the IGL out of those two. But like this is going to be a team that I think does have potential to be really, really good because you got good experience from Rambo and RKN. And McLovin, I think, is one of those up and comers who he really just broke out last season onto the scene, stepped onto EEC and immediately had an impact and made that team better. And so now he's on a new team, and we're going to see if he's going to be able to have the same effect with RKN and Rambo.
And you got to mention too that they should have made the Esports World Cup qualifier. They were the third place team, and they just got jumped over by Tripods, who just happened to win that final game out of, pulling a rabbit out of a hat. So they were right there. So we've already kind of seen what they can do as a team right now. They were able to place very well in the Esports World Cup qualifier. So even though their first split wasn't the best, this is a team that can surprise a lot of people, and we've seen a lot of these players do well in the past. So I love that you brought up Native Gaming. I'll go off and talk a little bit about Furia here. This is one of my big questions going into this split is how they look with a full split with Vaxlon at IGL. We had his Watson start the split last in split one. He didn't make the full split. They bring in Vaxlon a little late, and I think that kind of affected their performance because they kind of had to get back into that groove of everything, trying to figure out how they worked together. And before his Watson had joined in, they were playing together, and they were playing great. And then you have another player come in, you bring in Vax, and then you have to kind of work out how you got to get that chemistry back. Like it doesn't just come, especially when you've been playing with another guy for, most of the season. So I'm excited to see what they can do with Vax here for the full split. And I want to see what Furia can do. The other team, Team Liquid, they get 19th in split one. They had a decent showing at LAN, but then on the final, they just didn't really show up. And I think there was a lot of questions about whether or not the team was going to stay together. I'm glad that they did stay together. This is one of the longer standing teams we have right now that TSM is kind of like split up in different ways. But I think Team Liquid can bounce back, and I do have them in my top 5. When we get to our predictions, I'll say where. But I do think, at least when it comes to placement and Pro League, just the days, they're always going to be up there. They had a terrible start to split one, awful start. They had players who were disconnecting, players who couldn't get into the lobbies, they would load into games with just 2 guys and they would have to try to figure it out. And they still, I think, got 4th overall in split one with all of those bad days. I think like after day 3, they were sitting down. Like they were way down there, and they were able to claw their way back up and get into like 4th overall. So this team, at the very least, when it comes to Pro League, they're always going to perform, I think, in my opinion. And I think they're going to do really well this split as well. I just can't, I would not bet against them making it. I just would not bet against them making it to LAN. I think they're one of the premier fighting teams that we have in NA. Okay, Enoch. I think that's just about it for Group C, unless you have anything else. You got anything else?
Yeah, we're good.
All good? Okay, so biggest question for you going into the season. There's a ton of storylines. There's a ton of what ifs. How's this going to work? All of that throughout Split 2 Pro League. The biggest question for you, what is it going into Split 2?
Yeah, so I think the biggest storyline is going to be TSM. It's obviously like with Hal leaving, it's not going to be the same TSM, but TSM up until this point has been the team, the org, like the scene has basically been TSM. And so now it's going to be really just a good sign of like, is it the love for TSM or was it the love for Hal on TSM? Are we still going to see TSM as like this huge favorite, or is that going to move over to Falcons as being like the number 1 bandwagon team that the casual fan is going to want to like join and root for? Because I mean, this is like, I'm not going to say that it's like KD going to the Warriors, but like in terms of like talent and skill level, it's basically it's like it's similar in a way. And so it'll be interesting to see if Evan and Reps are going to be able to like step up and fill the void that Howe is leaving. They have an absolute exceptional shooter in Zapto. And so it'll be really on it'll really be on Evan and Reps and their ability to lead the team in their direction, knowing that if they just put Zap in the right spots, he's going to do his job better than most.
I love that. I love that. My biggest question going into the season will be DSG. I'm interested to see how it works out after, I think this will be their third go around as a team together. And I want to see how the dynamic shifts and changes based on what we saw in split one. In split one, at the beginning of the split, there was a lot of turmoil, at least in their comms. It sounded like there was a lot of turmoil. They may have been fine off the game, but it just sounded like there was a lot of problems. And they were able to fight back and kind of figure out a good middle ground to where they needed to be with their calls, where they needed to be with the plays that they were making. And I think they found a very good version of Designful who was able to still have that fire that he brings, but also be able to be a little bit more understanding and okay with some of the plays that they're making. And I want to see how that translates into this next split when it comes to a POI draft. It's not going to be the same. I want to see how they respond. I'm excited to see it. They were probably the team I watched the second most last split, probably behind LG. So I'll probably be watching them a lot more going into this split as well. I just want to see how that dynamic continues to work because I think it has the potential to be one of the best teams that we've seen in Pro League going into, at least in NA, this split. But I could also see a world where comms kind of fall off and things start to go into disarray. When you're together for a long time, especially with the personalities that they have, sometimes things can start to fall apart in certain areas. And I think we saw that a little bit with G2, with Resulta and Gent and Designful. I want to see how this split goes the third go round. I'm just excited to see it. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on DSG. So that is my biggest question going in. And now, Enoch, the moment of truth. It is prediction time. We've got predictions in split 2 playoffs. I've got my top 5 ready to go. You ready?
Let's hear it.
Okay. Number 5, like I mentioned before, I've got Team Liquid. I may not pick them to win a LAN, but I will definitely pick them to make it to a LAN because I think they're able to weather the storm no matter what happens. Like I said last split, they had a ton of things go wrong for them, and they still managed to find their way in and make it over to a LAN. So I got them at 5. Number 4, Moist. Moist has oddly enough become the team of consistency that we used to look at XSET and say that they're always going to be there. They are extremely consistent. That is what they do. XSET just makes it work. And I think Moist has kind of filled in that role with XSET having an off split in split 1. Extremely consistent. They may not win the whole damn thing, but they are definitely going to be there moving forward. So I got them at 4. Number 3, I got SSG. Phony is on his villain arc, and he's got the team to do it with. They're like the bad boy Pistons. I like watching Phony in this realm. He's always been one of my favorite players ever since we interviewed him. If you haven't listened to that, go listen to it. Very good story. Whether you like him or not, I think you should listen to it. I think you could at least gain some perspective on where Phony comes from and what he's all about. But I think he's on his villain arc, and I think this roster is stacked. It is loaded. It is arguably one of the best rosters in this NA scene, if not for Team Falcons just having a absolute super team, which is my number 2 team, Team Falcons. I think they are going to play as everybody expects them to play. They're going to be a very dominant team. They have one of the best IGLs in the world. They have one of the best IGLs in the world who is now going to be able to just run around and shoot his gun and do what he does best. And then they have one of the best controller players in the scene. It's going to be dominant. It's going to be awesome. They're going to have a big target on their back. They're not going to care. They're going to go out, dominate, do what they do. And then my number 1 team is, I think, a team that is flying under the radar. But like I said, with Space Station Gaming, they're on their villain arc. I think Sweet Dreams is on his hero arc with this Team Luminosity roster. Funk and Sykes, we already saw what Funk could do. Last split, he was frying people. He was slaying out, doing great. They bring in Sykes, a guy with a lot of experience, and it just seems like whatever team Sykes goes to, he finds a way to make it work. He's been on some of the greatest teams that this sport has ever seen. He was just on on Dark Zero breaking records last split at LAN, where it was, I mean, they were just blowing. It was like fish in a barrel for them. They were just dominant. So I think that Luminosity is going to not. I don't know if I should say surprise people, because I think people know they're going to be a good team, but I think they're going to be exceedingly good. This is the perfect player that Sweet needs, a guy who has experience, a guy who knows what he needs to be doing in his role. And it's going to make his job a lot easier. And when you make Sweet's job a lot easier, I think it'll make the overall team cohesion and dynamite. And I think that they are going to win NA Split 2 Pro League. That is my top 5. E, you want to hit yours?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Falcons number 1. Just out of respect for Zero at this point. I feel like I've counted him out in my top, like in my predictions each time, and not giving him the respect that he deserves. And definitely am gonna decide that it's a good time to no longer do that. So I'm gonna go with Falcons. And first, I'll go ahead and I'll throw LG in second. I think that, Sweet's really going to be able to put it together with this team, and they're going to show up and show out. I'll go ahead and put DSG in third, which that could be, I think DSG does have a chance to walk away with it all. And then I'm going to go ahead and put Moist Esports in fourth. They were one of the best teams, most consistent last split. I don't think that that's going to change, even with all roster mania. And then in number 5, I'm going to go with Elevate. Yes, it's a team that's like fairly different, but it's a team that I think is going to be playing together a lot and putting in the work to become the team that they know that they're capable of, and it's going to be fun to watch.
I love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is our Split 2 Pro League breakdown. Our preview. I forgot the word preview for a second. That is our Split 2 Pro League preview. And ladies and gents, now we get to go into an absolute banger interview with our guy, Verhulst. It was awesome having him back on. He is the dude. He is the man. And he goes over some of the crazy topics that went down during this roster mania, talking about what's going on with TSM and some of the questions that maybe, did they think that they were going to hang it up with TSM and move on? He answers some of those questions. So let's hit a quick ad. And on the other side, TSM, Verhulst. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, everyone. Here we are with a very special guest, the second time on the show. We've got Verhulst from TSM. Some people are calling you Dwayne Pipe. Do you want to stay Verhulst, or do we go Dwayne Pipe for this interview?
We can go with Dwayne Pipe.
Do it Dwayne Pipe?
Yeah,
that was the best name, by the way, out of that entire video. Dwayne Pipe was the best one.
Yeah, I was told,
I forgot what it was, but it was close. But Dwayne Pipe's the best.
I think I was told that Onset came up with that one, so you can thank him. He's probably throwing in so many funny ideas.
Yeah, that was the best piece of content at LAN. Like that was the best one.
Yeah, I was actually blown away by how good that was. That clip was so well made, and like it was like 4 minutes, and it had so much good stuff in it. It was actually like so good.
No, it was awesome. Well, Verhulst, usually at the end of every interview, I say, hopefully next time I see you, you've got that trophy. For the first time ever on this podcast, somebody returned with a trophy. Since the last time you came on, you won one. So how are you feeling, bro? How's everything been going for you recently?
Recently everything's been kind of up in the air. I mean, with Hal leaving, our team is having to learn how to IGL. Me and Reps are having to learn how to IGL. But post champs was great. Like being able to sit on that W for months on end was just an incredible feeling. And I made those months go by very quickly. And it was just awesome. Like knowing that after winning champs is the best, not only because it's like the biggest tournament, right? But you have like the longest break after champs, so you get to sit on your W for like we got to sit on for like 6 months basically, or like from like the start of November to like I guess like when was split 1? It was like
I don't even remember.
The start of May, the start of this month. Yeah, the start of this month.
Definitely the larger gap. of all the
Yeah,
tournaments.
so
For
it was
sure.
like 6 months you get to sit on your win. Like any other tournament, you don't get to sit on your win for that long.
Okay, question: do you think
It's a great
that
feeling.
sitting on the do you think that having that much time to sit on the win in some way could have been a hindrance because you guys like had that W, you guys like felt amazing about it, and you guys didn't have that like that hunger and like that like got to get back to the top because you guys had just like summited.
Yeah, I feel like it probably did have an effect, like whether we any of us admit it or not. Like maybe like subconsciously it did. Because we definitely didn't train like even though I feel like we played as much as we as much as like we usually do this time around. But maybe we just didn't train as hard, or we just didn't play as hard as we usually do. We were just like we would sit and play 8 hours a day, but maybe we just weren't mentally there every day like we have been previously.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe it might have had a little bit of an effect, yeah. But you know, they say what they say is like winning 2 championships in a row is like impossible in most sports and esports and whatnot. It's tough. It's tough because everyone's like after a neck too. Like everyone like after winning, it's like no one wants you to win too. And then a BR, you can get like targeted so easily. Like everyone knows that like TSM is coming off the championship, and it's like everyone's like it's almost like a mental thing when like teams run into you and they're like, okay, that team just won a championship. We need to try extra hard to make sure we don't die to this team. And so it's like every team you run into is like playing their best, and it just makes the game much harder. Like I know that when we go against, we know like we're about to fight Dark Zero. Like we're playing a bit tighter around our angles, aim's a little bit better. Like
A little bit more.
I
You
swear
just
to God,
you lock in a little bit more.
you just know, yeah, you know, because you know if you make a
100%.
mistake, you're just dead.
Especially when it's that kind of rivalry that you guys have where, you know, it's I think I was going to ask this question too about champs, but that was the one they didn't make Sunday, right?
Yep.
They weren't even in finals. So not only do you guys get the win,
Yeah.
but your biggest rival doesn't even make it to the
Yeah.
final. So you not only got to sit on the win, but that as well. But it is interesting that you say when you're even you guys, you know, the guys who are at like the top of the mountain, still when you see Dark Zero, you're like, let's tighten up here a little bit.
You know, definitely.
Let's make sure we're
Definitely. Like certain teams, like
here.
if you know you're fighting a good team, you're gonna like you just are like you play it a bit stricter. You won't like full send a guy and like just try and end it quickly. You'll play a bit slower, play for like small advantages. For sure. Like I think every team does that. Like when they know a team's good, like everyone just slows down a little bit, plays it safe.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a whirlwind for you guys recently, just because there's been so much going on. I do want to give a little bit of shine to what is happening with TSM right now before we start to kind of look back on everything. But you guys have Talmadge now. You guys have Zap. Everything, you know, you haven't really played a whole lot together. You're kind of just going through scrims right now. But kind of talk about what's been going on with the new look TSM and how you're feeling about it right now.
Yeah. So we've been it's technically still a trial. We haven't actually signed them yet, but you know it's looking like we probably will. We've only played like 6 or 7 sets of scrims now, so still very very new into playing with each other. The biggest thing, honestly, has nothing to do with Zap and Talmadge. It's more so just me and reps having to learn how to like kind of IGL. And that's been pretty difficult because you know when the IGL leaves the team, it's like they carry away a lot of experience with them that only the IGL can get. So we're having to like basically build up that experience again, trying to like basically learn what Hal took away with him, and that's been pretty difficult. We're making a lot of like trivial like macro and like IGL related mistakes where maybe we don't have someone like watching our back, or we just like make a play that's just isn't the play to like win a game, and sometimes it's like obvious and we just don't see it. But yeah, I mean, as far as Zap and Talmadge go, like we're super excited to have picked up both of those guys. Like Zap is an insane fragger. Dude just cracked it out of his mind. Like we watched him. We've seen him play at E8, and it's like almost every time we spectate him in E8, like if they killed us, we would just see him do something crazy every time. Like we just knew, like especially if he was last alive too. That dude would just like he'd have like a wingman and he would just hit some like crazy wingman like forward tap on somebody. Like I remember, I think it was him, not Shuby, where it was Hal was queuing up in a Horizon queue at an end game outside of a Cedo station, like in one of the side compounds.
Oh, I remember.
And Hal was like, "Do you remember that?"
Yeah,
and he just gets like he gets like 3 tap or something,
just
like out of that queue.
on.
He gets destroyed. I think that was Zap. I swear that was Zap.
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
And I was like, I never forgot that. Zap is just dude's a freak. he just hits some insane shots. He's like probably one of the best mechanical players, if not the best mechanical player right now. Like he is so good. And yeah, Talmadge. I mean, Talmadge was kind of like a package deal with Zap. I didn't know much about Talmadge at all, really, to be honest. And like Zap said, like, hey, that we should trial him. Like, I think he wants to come with me, and we just trialed him. We've been trialing him, and he seems pretty dang helpful. He's really really good. Like he's really like level headed, and he's always given good input after games. Telling us what we should have done, and he doesn't like. He doesn't have. I don't think he has any like an ego. He's pretty like. He doesn't like act as if he understands like what's going on like all the time to like the fullest extent. He's like sometimes like if it's like we're trying to solve a problem together, he's like trying to solve it too. It's not like he just always knows the answer to everything. But that kind of makes it seem like he's more, like equal to us in a way. And it's definitely different from Raven, because Raven, it felt like Raven was like, when Raven spoke, it sounded like he was just like a mastermind, right? Like he would say things and it's like you don't have to understand why it works. You just listen to it. And that was Raven most of the time. But it seems like Talmadge, like the way he speaks too is a lot more like this like relatable feeling. It's definitely different, and it's definitely more comfortable, I'd say, having trialing Talmadge. But so far, like strategy wise, he's been super helpful. I think without him, like our progress would be a lot slower. Like he's like really good at pointing out mistakes and pointing out what we actually need to work on, and being that fourth opinion that's just not emotional in games is super nice.
I think it's nice too when you're talking about the IGLing and stuff. It's nice to have that fourth opinion in there, like you said, to kind of speed things along, because you're already taking on such a gigantic role change. And then to have somebody else kind of point out things that you might not be seeing because you're focusing on trying to figure out what you need to be doing better as an IGL, it just helps you out overall. I think a lot more teams in Apex, we have seen it since this podcast started. A lot more teams are getting coaches, but I think that like is really what will solidify each team having a coach moving forward, is just that fourth voice you were talking about.
Yeah, because BR just gets emotional. Like people, like you have like, it's not like a 5v5 game where it's like pretty steady results. Like like in a 5v5 game, you kind of like know what you're gonna do. But in BR, it's like you might be the best team and just get 19th place 5 times in a row. And it's like you need a coach to like tell you that like you're not making any mistakes. You're just getting unlucky, Or the other way around. Maybe you're winning and you're still making a bunch of mistakes, and it's like you need your coach to tell you that. Yeah, it's just super helpful in BR especially.
Yeah, and if there's any coach who knows getting 19th or 20th place 5 times in a row, it was Talmadge with that E8 contest. Apparently he did not want to do.
Solid mental.
yeah, he's got it.
I don't know.
He's got it locked
I would
down.
be so checked out, man. After dying after it 5 times in a row, I would be, man, that would be hard. I don't know how they got that 18 kill or that 17 kill win or whatever after that.
Right afterwards, too.
That was insane.
Yeah. The mental on that team right there. I mean, there you go.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
It's insane.
So
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I was gonna see. So you guys do end up. It's looking like. I mean, obviously you said that it's not official, but you guys have been trialing with Zap an awful lot. Obviously, you just spoke incredibly highly of him, but he is more of like that fragger role, and how was leaving as the IGL. And so, what made you guys make the decision to like pick up that fragger instead of some of like the IGLs that were on the market, and what made you guys make the decision to like put that on like upon yourselves?
I think we just figured like we could kind of carry on Hal's like style of IGLing ourselves, because we'd played with him for so long. I think we both like wanted to try IGLing as well.
Mm-hmm.
We just felt like we'd both be good at it, and we'd be able to pick it up quickly. We'd both like be good at leading a team. At the start, we didn't know who would IGL, and right now we still kind of like don't necessarily have a set IGL. We're kind of just like throwing ideas at each other. And already, I think our macro has gotten way better. Like we've been learning super quick, but yeah, no, picking up Zap, like we just felt we wanted just like more firepower, because before Zap, we were just like losing every single team fight. And I don't know if that's necessarily Hal's fault specifically. Like we were all like doing pretty poorly in team fights. But yeah, we just couldn't win a team fight before Zap, and now it's like now it feels like as if we're just winning every single team fight. It's like he is just like super good at team fighting. Like that's definitely a strong suit. Like he just every single team fight he's good. He's good for a knock every time. Like he always gets his trade. Most of the time he gets more than just a trade. He's just a freak.
And when he's not, you're definitely shredding two people at once with a Havoc, which was the craziest clip I've seen all week. That was absolutely insane. So, yeah, I mean, there you go. You've got the firepower there. What was that conversation like with reps when it came to you guys being like, should we try it? Like, how did that conversation start? Was it just like, all right, well, I guess, we know best.
Well, at first, like there weren't a ton of options. It was between like we had like Designful reaching out, we had Drop reaching out. Zap wasn't actually reaching out at the start, so we didn't even like consider him at the start at all because we didn't think we didn't like know if he was an option. Like he told us Jordan asked him if he wanted to play, and he told us like he was staying on E8, and we only learned basically after we trialed Designful for like 2 days, like basically right as Designful said he wasn't gonna join us. Zap was like, hey, can I join you guys? It was like perfect timing. And we already decided like we didn't want to play with Dropped because we didn't want like a IGL. And it was just like perfect timing that Zap asked to play right as Designful backed out. I know we tried to get Koi as well, but Koi decided to stay in SSG. But honestly, I don't know if we would have done that well with Koi. I don't know. He was really good at land, but I don't know. I just feel like I just don't know if that would have worked out. Maybe it would have, but Zap seems like a bit more like a well-rounded player than Koifel. Like Koifel is just like pure firepower mechanics, but Zap has a little bit of a voice, right? He can pitch in towards macro and do like necessary kind of like chore like parts of the game that keep your team alive, like stuff like watching your back or correct like nade and ability usage, which a lot of teams don't get right. He's really good at that. But yeah, like as far as like discussion goes, like there wasn't that much discussion because we weren't deciding between many options at all. It was like at first we were just trying to Designful, and then he wasn't an option, and Zap was like our only option after that. So we were like, okay, we've watched Zap, we know how good he is. Like it was just a done deal, like instantly.
And so you guys said that you haven't quite figured out who's going to be the IGL, but like when you get to those like end games, you like as well as most people know how like critical like each of those seconds are, and like the ability to like have somebody make a decision and then all of those like everybody on the team like follow off that decision. So do you think that you guys are going to have like a set IGL when you guys like start getting into Pro League? And if so, at this moment, do you think it would end up being you or would it end up being reps?
Right now we don't know yet. We're just kind of like co-IGLing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we've still been making some macro mistakes, so we're not like we definitely haven't ironed everything out yet. And if we don't iron everything out soon, we might just try one dedicated IGL. Whether that's me or Jordan, we don't know yet. Like honestly, we have to just talk about it as a team, figure that out. But yeah, we just don't know yet. Like right now, we're just trying co-IGLing.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some good scrims with co-IGLing. We've also had some bad scrims. So
Yeah.
Still trying to figure out if that's even viable.
So as far as like with that option being on the table that you could potentially be the IGL of TSM, has that added a lot more preparation to what you bring to the game already? Because now you're changing basically an entire role. And even though you may not become the main IGL, as of right now, you have to at least practice like you're going to become one so that you can figure out if like it's a viable option moving forward. Has there been any change in the regimen kind of in between scrim blocks and different stuff like that?
One thing I've changed really is just doing more VOD review. I'm doing a lot more VOD review than I ever have. Kind of just watching teams and like trying to basically understand the map and where teams are going to be at what time, and kind of like how endgames play out, and just learning like what calls to make, just macro wise. And the only way to really learn that is by playing scrims and watching VODs. And you can't play scrims all day, unfortunately. You only get 6 to 12 games. So VODs is like the only way to supplement your macros and IGL. So I've been watching a ton of VODs.
It seems like from my perspective, because I've been watching a lot of your guys' scrim blocks recently just to kind of figure out where or what direction you guys are going in. It seems like to me you have made a lot of like the major calls, and Jordan will kind of step in and help here and there. At least that's my perspective of it. And so, what has been the biggest challenge for you stepping into those shoes right now, that when you're watching scrims, you're looking back and seeing, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have done this, maybe I shouldn't have done that, be more vocal here. What's been the biggest like thing that you see yourself making a mistake on right now?
Oh man, it's hard to pinpoint one specific thing. I would say maybe like, I mean, I guess one thing is kind of a general thing that's like, it's the equivalent of the same, like I need to improve my aim, but just knowing when to take a fight, when not to take a fight. Like sometimes I'll just push fights that we'll be like sitting in a good spot and I'll just go and have us push a fight and we just all die. And that spot ended up winning the game. Like sometimes I think I'm too aggressive, call to push teams when I don't need to. But other times that aggressiveness works out like really well and we'll just get tons of kills and we'll just have like a juicier game. But I think most of the time I end up being too aggressive and I call to kill teams that we just shouldn't try and kill. But yeah, I think right now it's been one thing I've been like kind of thought about, just knowing when to push teams and when to chill.
You got one?
Yeah. So, what does a typical day in life look like as you're getting ready for Pro League and trying to make sure that you're doing your best to show up each and every day like the best you can be? So, like, yeah. And so, like, what do you do to allow yourself to show up to the best that you can be?
The ideal training day for me is I'll wake up. First thing I'll do is go outside and I'll read for like 20 minutes. I'll just read a book and try and get some sunlight, because I feel like if I don't get sunlight in the morning, my sleep schedule just like suffers a lot. Like ever since I started reading outside or just going out, like just getting sun early, it's been a lot easier to fall asleep early, and my sleep schedule's been a lot better since doing that. So I make sure I do that every morning, and then usually after that, I'll eat some food. So I'll have breakfast, and then I might sit on like R5 or something, or like might train mechanics for like an hour while that food is digesting. And once it has, I will usually go to the gym. This is probably around like noon, 1 o'clock ish. Recently, I've been doing a lot of swimming because it's hot outside, and luckily our gym has an outdoor pool, so getting some more sun and going. I feel like swimming's like one of the best things you could possibly do as a gamer. It's like a full body workout, and it's pretty easy on your joints too. So it's like swimming's just been great.
I would say be careful with that. There's
Careful.
there's a former comp player who started swimming and then he stopped playing comp, and so
Who's that?
his Watson.
He started swimming,
dude. In his like stream where he was answering all of his questions, like he was like, yeah, so like I like swimming. And so it doesn't really work out with scrims. And like it's just like the way that he like phrased it, it was just so funny.
Oh my
He was
gosh.
just like, I like swimming.
You must have loved swimming, huh?
Yeah, apparently.
He just quit his whole career to keep swimming. Respect.
You guys going to the Olympics. You go fight for Phelps, apparently.
Yeah.
If he brings his Apex work ethic to swimming, it's better
There we
win the
go.
Olympics. But yeah, I mean, I was
Oh, go ahead.
just gonna say like, I mean, I used to swim leading up to champs and split 2. I was swimming a lot because when it gets hot in Austin, like swimming is just one of the best things you can do. You know, get outside and be in the heat, but be cooled off us at the same time of the water. And I think swimming is just like such a healthy activity to do. But yeah, I don't think it'll take away from my scrims too much. I was doing it last year before champs and split 2, so
Good balance, good man.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're not thinking about
if
retiring.
there was a
No,
man
you're
who
good.
could get it done, it
No.
would be Big E.
I have not thought about retiring to start swimming full time.
There we go. Awesome. Speaking of your schedule, I'm glad Enoch asked this because I've been dying to ask this question since the interview started. I was listening to our last interview just to kind of like refresh my memory about like what we talked about, all the different stuff that was going down at that time. And there was an answer to a question where I was asking you basically the same thing Enoch asked you. What's your regimen like? And you said you hopped into the range for 2 to 3 hours, and we were all dumbfounded by how long you were spending time in the firing range. This was before they changed the firing range. Like this was the old firing range, the bad one. Are you still hopping into the firing range for 2 to 3 hours?
No, since the introduction of R5 and Pro TDMs, I think that's equal to, if not better than, the firing range for improving mechanics. TDM, like Pro TDMs, like it's pro players, dude. It's like it's hard to beat. Like just nonstop gunfights, like playing out like real scenario, kind of like realistic scenarios. So what you actually get in game, just like nonstop 3v3 fighting, like fighting around doorways too. Like being able to bait and switch with your team. Like TDMs right now are kind of just way better trained in the firing range, and R5 is like kind of like debatably better than the firing range because it's just doing straight 1v1s nonstop, where like both players just like slide out equally next to each other. Like there's not much, there's no like outplaying to that really. That's just like pure aim and mechanics. And I mean, you can do that in the firing range, no problem. But yeah, no, I still try to do minimum 1 hour of mechanics, whether that be firing range or R5 or TDM. But I'd say most days I'm doing 2 to 3 still.
Have you ran into one of the movement players
in R5?
Yeah, like the ones that are just absolutely just tweaking sack just all over the.
Yeah, there's a lot. Dude, I'll say there aren't many anymore. They're at the start there's a ton, but they all died off. I think there's been too many tweets where it's like, bro, why are you wasting movement in R5?
I absolutely miss the guy who would just post like design shit talk them. I think Mac shit talked them. Knock shit talk to him. So like all of them just like saying like, have you ever touched a woman before? Or like, have you ever touched grass? Dude, nah, they were fire. Cause like he was just going crazy.
Was it a controller player?
No, it was a M&K player. Just absolutely doing the most.
Just tweaking on them.
Oh, of course.
There's a lot of config guys, but they've all kind of like died off. Like recently everyone's just like, R5 is pretty good right now. Yeah, no one really plays that cheesy right now. Everyone just does the slide out. They don't like try and play around cover or anything.
I will say one of the funnier videos I've seen on Twitter recently was there was a guy who was ratting in R5.
Oh my god!
Would just sit behind the spawn and wait for the guy to like peek him.
That's probably the worst thing you could possibly do. I'd rather have him track down the movement, adding out.
Just go play the game.
Just like, that's just somebody just queuing up just to like ruin somebody else's practice. They're just like, I'm not here to win. I'm just here to have somebody else lose.
You know, there are players that will just run away. Like they'll spawn and then run across the whole arena. You can't find them. You literally can't find them. And you just sit there, just like everyone else is fighting, practicing, and you just have to find this one guy. He's gone.
You gotta love it. Okay, well, so
hold on.
There's been a lot of.
Go ahead. We had just that's like your gym routine, and that's swimming, and that's like midday. Just so recently we can finish up the day in the life of like the
swim
championship caliber professional esports player.
Yeah, after
swim, don't retire.
Swimming, balance with scrims.
After swim, I'll usually get home and start streaming, and I'll stream until let's say I get back from the gym around like 2-ish, 1:30 or like 2:30. I'll start streaming. Maybe I'll do some TDMs for the team, or I'll play Realm right now because Realm started or has been up. Realm or TDMs into scrims. After scrims, I might play some ranked with just some random players or more TDMs to the team. And then recently my team's been doing team VOD review after scrims. So when I in-stream, I'll do that with the boys. And after that's over, I have like 2 hours left in the day, and I might just usually just relax. Maybe I'll read, talk to my family, or maybe I'll just get back on Apex. But usually I don't for the last 2 hours.
Yeah, that's got to be tough to like stream, play it all the time, and then just be like, yeah, I'll just play it on my lonesome.
There's a certain point where it's
I wouldn't imagine too many people do that. It's like if they were in your shoes.
Let me hop on and get cheated on and ranked for a little bit to end my day out right.
I'm good.
Is there any other game you like play?
Recently, no. I've not played any games recently at all.
That's fair.
I used to play other games while playing Apex, but recently I just felt like it just hasn't been. Other games haven't been as enjoyable for me. I feel like there's just better use for my time now.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair.
That makes a lot of sense.
Dude, I feel like I play so much video games like during like work, right? That like the
Yeah.
idea of playing video games off stream, I'm just like,
Yeah, it's like too
I'm
much screen
not.
time.
I was like,
man.
I ain't got time for that.
Yeah. So moving on into some of the other stuff that was going down. Since we last saw you, obviously the biggest story of Apex recently, Hal leaving TSM. And it was a shock to a lot of the community. And, nobody, I don't think a whole lot of people expected it. Although when I was at LAN, there was rumors flying everywhere. So that leads me to ask you, like, how long did you guys know in advance, if you did know at all? And like, was there a conversation beforehand? Like, what was kind of like the situation surrounding that before the LA LAN?
So he had never told us that he was going to leave. Like he had never actually told us that he is like 100% going to leave. He just told us that he would leave if we did really bad at LAN. That was like basically what he said. So he was like, okay, if we do really bad, I have this offer here. I'm going to join this team. Because, if we have a bad LAN, it's like, might as well go try someone new if we're not performing well. And yeah, that's what he told us. He basically told us like, yeah, if we do poorly, I'm leaving. If not, I'm staying. And Jordan was under the impression that he was leaving like no matter what, and maybe he was leaving no matter what, and he just said that. But that was what he told us. Like he told us that his own words was, I got this offer, and I'll only leave if we do really bad at LAN. So he's like, he was basically just waiting for LAN to make a decision. And I think we learned about like 2 months beforehand, ish. I don't have the exact date, but it's like about 1.5 months out.
Could you feel a shift like after that conversation happened? And were you guys surprised by the conversation? Like, was it just like a big shock?
No, I like totally like had an idea like an expectation that he might do this. I've always thought that like one day like three IGLs are going to team up. Like we might see like a Hal Zero Sweet team or something. And I feel like that was kind of what basically happened, just like a supposed like super team. And I just totally felt like that could absolutely happen one day. And it did. And I wasn't really surprised. I was like, me and Jordan both told him like, yeah, bro, if you want to do it, it's business at the end of the day. Like no hard feelings. Like, you might be super successful still. You might get a higher salary. It's like, we're not going to hate you for it. And we wish you the best. And as far as like a shift goes, like, I think subconsciously it affected us, but it didn't like at the time it didn't feel like it did, but maybe it did like subconsciously. Maybe it was making us just not as like cohesive. We just didn't train as hard, but it didn't feel like it affected us. But I think it had to have a little bit, like subconsciously.
Yeah, I would assume because there was during the first Pro League split, there was this weird few days during the Pro League where it felt like you guys were just a little off.
Yeah.
And like you said, maybe it didn't feel like it on the surface, but like subconsciously it was probably like not affecting you. And then that leads into this LAN, obviously did not go your guys' way. What did you feel like was the biggest, detractor from allowing you guys to perform at your best ability at the LA LAN?
Our team fighting was really bad. That was probably the biggest thing. Like, I really had wished that we practiced team deathmatch TDMs like before LAN. I think if we had practiced a bunch of TDMs, we would have been so much better because we just kept losing like team fights at LAN. Like I don't know, like we won we probably lost like 80% of the team fights that we took at LAN. It was horrible. We just couldn't win a 3v3 to save our lives. It was really bad. And on top of that, our macro wasn't perfect either because like when your team fighting gets really bad, it kind of like it kind of ruins your macro too because you don't have the confidence to like push teams. So now you have less options than if you know that your team can just like kill a team quickly and without going down, and then it opens up your macro a ton. And when your team fighting is bad, it's like have limited macro options because you can't fight anybody. So I think at the end of the day, it came down to team fighting. Like we just couldn't win a fight. And my biggest regret is that we didn't play enough team deathmatch. We didn't play any team deathmatch at all. Like zero TDM practice. And clearly like teams like E8 and DZ, the two teams that literally played the most team deathmatch beforehand, were like the best team fighting teams. And obviously Zach landed at Seal Station and got rolled at CDEV, but that's not like outside of that, they were still like one of the best fighting teams out there. Like they were so good at fighting. And just same with Dark Zero, like they were both just super good at fighting. And if we had practiced TDMs, I think we would have had a different outcome for sure.
So why is that? Why did you guys not? Was it just something that you guys didn't see the value of at the time? or like what
Well,
led to that decision?
Hal thinks like any sort of mechanics training is like useless, and he saw TDMs as just mechanics training, like just training your aim. But I think TDMs is so much more than mechanics training. Like you learn to like bait and switch off your teammates. You learn to like have roles. You learn to like kind of set your roles, like having an anchor and fragger and really defining those roles in TDM. You learn to call swings together. You can learn to call like even like you can get practice doing like split swings where you send like two guys left, one guy right. You can learn to do flanks like and like you get to a point where it just becomes like automatic and your team finding can just get really good really quickly. I think that's what happened to E8 especially. Like E8 just like got so good after doing TDMs. Like I think they might have played more TDMs than everybody did leading up to LAN, and they were just so good at team fighting because of TDMs. I think.
So that's probably something you guys are looking to utilize moving forward into Split 2.
Oh yeah. We've already been doing TDMs every single day. Pretty much since we picked up Zap, we've TDM'd every single day except the weekend.
And I mean, obviously, I've never played pro before, but I feel like you were talking about setting your roles and trying to figure out where like what person is where, the anchor, the fragger, who's up front. How hard is it to kind of maintain those roles when you get into those crazy fights in those end games? Because I got to assume like it is so difficult to make sure that you stay on that spot with all the stuff going on around you.
Yeah, a lot of times the roles fall apart, like especially in end games, or like if you ever finish fighting team and you get third partied, a lot of times each player is not in a position to like do their role. So I think pretty dang often you actually can't fill your roles like at all in BR. But at the start of a fight, you can always do your roles. Like if you're doing like any sort of isolated 3v3, you can always like fill your roles. Like you can always have the catalyst walk in last as the anchor, like the Bangalore be in the front smoking, and the Bloodhound follows up and sends it. But yeah, when you get to an end game, it's like they're kind of like the roles in an end game usually fall apart because a lot of times you're just doing 3-man swings in end games. Like you're just deathballing. That's usually how end games play out. Like you're just sending certain positions, and it all comes down to like IGLing.
That's interesting. It's interesting.
And so would you say that your role as like Cat, I mean, you were more of like the anchor role, right?
Yeah.
And
So
would you say that inspired you pioneering the double AR meta?
Oh, me. Well, I wouldn't say I pioneered it. I think people were going to catch on regardless. I definitely used to have it.
You were the first guy that I saw ripping the double AR, and I saw one time you were Nemi Hemlock, and I was like, what is this dude doing? I was like, what is wrong?
Yeah, so that was back when the R9 had Digi on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if our team ever got Digis, we like Reps and Hal would always get priority because they were playing Bloodhound, and I forgot what Hal was on. He might have been Horizon, but like they would both be in the fight first, right? And I'd be always in the back, so it wouldn't make sense to give me the digital threat. And so because of that, and the fact that I was sitting in the back, I just thought I'd run 2 ARs because it was very rare that like I'm actually having to like take a fair trade on somebody and like I need the strike speed from my submachine gun. It's always me just like flanking, shooting someone in the back, or like just getting cover fire over my teammates, or just like holding out a team from afar. Like I just was rarely running into scenarios where like a submachine gun would help me. And I also got really good at like doing that ADS thing where you ADS and come into hit fire and the bullets are still accurate. And like if you get good at that, then like it just makes ARs insane. And yeah, I mean, also like another thing on Catalyst too is like a lot of times you pick a cat wall, right? And like you're just trying to kill someone as quickly as possible. You don't want to risk missing a one clip. Like when you peek through a cat wall, you want to get a kill instantly and then back up through the cat wall. You're not playing for chip damage, you're playing for a kill most of the time. And for AR, it's just better. Because the R9 was really good Digi, right? Mm-hmm. But it was really hard to one clip somebody with it. Like you had to hit like every single bullet in your mag still. And with ARs, that just wasn't the case. Like ARs, you get a guaranteed clip every time. You can't miss a one clip with an AR because you have so many bullets and so much damage in a mag. Like if you were running like the car, the R9 back then, it was just too hard to guarantee a one clip. Like as an anchor,
reliable, no doubt. Flatline Havoc, just disgusting. Yeah.
It's just guaranteed one clips. Like you can't miss a one clip.
2 best SMGs at the moment, some say.
Yeah, definitely are.
When Enoch was asking that question, you were talking about your role. You were about to talk about your role for Split One, and it brought a question to mind for me with you being at that anchor role.
Yeah.
It's always felt weird to me seeing you as an anchor because the way I view you, and I think a lot of people out there view you, is like you have the talent and ability to definitely be like a fragger or like a refragger. So was there like was that a role that you had wanted to play, or was that something that you were kind of told to play?
No, well, there's a period of time in Valkyrie where I was just like hard inting. I was just pushing way too hard, so they just moved me to anchor as like a band-aid fix, and I just ended up staying on anchor. That's basically what happened. Because like, uh, yeah, I wasn't playing well on Valkyrie for a bit, and then I got moved to either like Watson or Caustic right away, and yeah, that was pretty much it. Um, and we just went from there. You know, I definitely don't like playing anchor. I mean, it's like super boring. It's like I almost feel like having like a hard anchor in your team that's just like always in the back is almost like unhealthy because like that player basically gets like no experience, like because you don't get to see what's going on around the map. You don't get to shoot your gun. You don't get to take trades. You don't get to like fight anybody, and it's just way more. You gain way less experience as a player. You get to see like what's less of what's going on. So you just gain like less like information and just experience as an anchor. So I think it's good to like rotate who's watching your back in a game, just so like multiple players can see what's going on and kind of like play the game.
Yeah, like a rotating anchor
Yeah.
type situation. Maybe even just based on how the fight is going.
Yeah, or just like
kinda
where your players happen to be on the map. Like sometimes like one player's just in an anchor position. It's like, okay, you watch our back for now.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. It was definitely, and a lot of people, especially around land, there was a lot of comments being like, why is Evan sitting back as the anchor right now? And I thought it was a fair point, just because like, just for instance, like I brought up that clip earlier. You see that clip of you just shredding an entire team
Yeah.
with a havoc, and you're like, holy! You knocked two guys with one clip,
Yeah.
and you're like, holy shit! Like this guy should be on the front lines. And so it was always interesting. I wanted to revisit the Hal thing one last question real quick, because I've always wondered about this. When you find out Hal's leaving, was there ever a conversation between you and Reps about potentially like going your separate ways?
You know, Reps asked me if I wanted to play with him, and I just said yes, and that's basically it. You know, I don't think either of us thought about going our separate ways at all. It wouldn't make sense given how much experience we have together, and we have to at least try. Like, even if maybe one of us did want to split up, like, it just wouldn't make sense to not at least try for a little bit, especially because we have the guaranteed EWC spot as a duo. And it's like if we split up, we lose that spot as well. So like, even if one of us did want to split up, which we don't, we would lose that spot, and it's just not even worth it. Like having to qualify through that gauntlet where only two teams make it, you know,
And find somebody who's as good as either of you.
Yeah, it would have been tough. Like having to go just join some random team and pray. You know, we'd also like we'd have to join a team that has a pro league spot too if we split up. So we wouldn't have a pro league spot anymore either.
Yeah, so I just always thought about it because the story was obviously like, oh, Hal. There's this huge story. He's gone. He's moving on. But I always I always wondered about what you and Reps were thinking as a team. So it was basically like a 3-second conversation. Like, you want to keep playing? Yeah. All right, let's run it. And you're just good.
Yeah, that was it. That's pretty much it. Like we got the news, and everyone's like, "Hey, bro, if he leaves, we want to play together." You know, like I think he called me. He's like, "Hey, bro, like who do you want to look for a third?" Like I don't even think he like suggested the idea of like splitting up.
You didn't even entertain it.
No.
You were just like, yeah, we're staying together. Yeah. The band's not breaking up.
He called me. He's like, "Hey, bro, like we should start looking for thirds," and like that was it.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. That's great. Okay, so now we start moving into Split 2, and we already talked a lot about, you know, what's going to happen with the IGL, but that's not the only change that's happened with you guys, not even just with you guys, but Pro League in general. Things are a changing. We've got a POI draft. We've got, so many different things happening going into this. Obviously, legend changes, all that, weapon changes. That happens all the time, but we have a brand new POI draft. What are your thoughts on this POI draft going on?
I love the POI draft. Like I've always thought that contesting is by far the worst part of competitive Apex. Like it's just the worst for playing. Like it's a it's debatably better for viewers, but I don't think any viewer wants to watch their team sit and spectate for 20 minutes because they didn't get a gun out of a bin at the start of the game. And contesting just suck. And the draft system gets rid of contesting unless you want to go Clowntizer or Sky East, of course. But you don't have to contest if you don't want to with this system. And not having to contest is great. I just love it for that mainly. But having learning different POIs too, it's just really, really fun. I think it's good for viewers too. Like it mixes up the game so much. Like it's super, super fun to learn all these different POIs. Like all this new information is just like you're having to learn about. Like all of a sudden, every single VOD from every single team becomes useful now because you want to learn every single POI and how every single POI like operates and how they move around the map and like how all the different timings work and what spots you can get to from every POI now. And it's just like there's just so much information to take in now compared to previously where it was like you learn a couple rotates for each zone and like now you're just trying to like find these little small little things to like gain points doing the exact same rotate every single game. But now it's like you're moving around different parts of the map every single set of scrims. Like you're really ever going the same route twice because you're having to like figure it out on the fly, and it's a lot harder to predict where teams are going because they don't know what they're doing either. So it's just way more chaotic, and I think it's way more fun. There's just way more to learn. Like it's like we're playing a whole different game. Going to different POIs every set.
Dude, it went from something that was like so hated to then something that everybody was like, okay, hold on, this actually is not that bad.
I don't know why. I think people one people that hated it were
Dark Zero, everybody that had a juice for POI.
POIs. Yeah, that's
everybody
why
who had a juice for POI was like, this is terrible.
I don't know what their argument was. Like, what was the argument for people that didn't like it? Do they have what was their reason?
I guess I kind of have like one thing because I was thinking about it today, and I'm just a viewer, right? So I don't actually play. But as a viewer, I just hope that they utilize the draft on screen at lands. Like I hope you can see what's getting picked. That's my worry about it because they were saying that it was supposed to be better for the viewer. And I think it is better for the viewer who has been paying attention for a very long time. But as for a casual viewer, I think the contests are a lot more exciting to watch. So that's kind of my worry with it is if you're brand new to watching Apex Legends, you probably want to see contests at first because that's something that is exciting. For the players, it sucks. It's terrible because you're like, damn, that just chalked my entire tournament. But at least for a casual viewer, it's good. For viewers who have been watching for a long time, though, I do think it's a better overall change because you can start to break down people's different performances based on where they're landing on the map. So overall, in the long run, I think it works. I just really hope they utilize it in the broadcast and make it to where we can kind of see where teams are going, see the draft order, all that kind of stuff. If they do all that, then I'm all for it. I just want to make sure that we can get all of that information because right now, I guess that's my biggest distraction from it is it's like it's happening in like a Discord. Everything's random. Nobody really knows until like things are like already up and running. That's that from somebody who has detractions from it. That's my only worry is more just for the viewer, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I know tomorrow is the POI draft for the first week of Pro League. And it's like they're probably not going to broadcast that, I don't think, and that's going to kind of suck for the viewers.
I did see that Greek said that he was going to watch party the draft.
Oh,
I mean,
that would be cool.
I don't know how it's going to work for him if he can like even like I don't know if it's going to be like public right away or what. I have no idea. But I think like
well,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say I really hope they broadcast it at LAN. I think it'd be really cool. I think they kind of have to at LAN.
Yeah.
Right? Like I guess
that's what I'm thinking.
Well, like it'd be nice for the players to get their POIs and prepared beforehand, but at the same time, like it's also kind of like cool to see them like you might get to watch teams like react live to get like a trash POI or something. Like imagine getting to watch your broadcast and you just see like a top team just get like cliffside, they get like 20th pick or something, and it's like you just see them put their heads in their hand and it's like.
Yeah, you got the camera on them. Like instead of like after a win when everybody's all excited, you just see them all just depressed because they just got cliffside.
Yeah, imagine they have imagine they have like the teams walk out on stage and like tell like the audience what POI they want. They're like, all right, team 1, come up the stage. And it's like they just don't think they could do that.
Yeah,
make it cool for Pro League. It sounds like
that's what I'm saying. Like as long as we get it at LAN, and I think to some extent in Pro League, like obviously this is the first one, so they probably won't have anything prepared for right now because they just did it like a couple weeks ago. But if they have it available for LAN to where we can see teams locking in their picks and different stuff like that, I'm all for it. Like, I just want to make sure the viewer gets to see it because I'm worried about what happens to the casual viewer that doesn't understand what's really happening or what's going on. Because contests are great for a casual viewer. You watch it, you're like, holy shit, people are fighting. That's awesome. That's so cool. And then you kind of take that away. And as a viewer, like, the beginning of BR games, no matter what BR it is, are always boring. It's just people getting loot rotating. So it does take away from that a little bit. But I understand from the player's perspective, and I think overall it'll make for a healthier game and also a healthier debate, which is a question I wanted to throw to you. Not only are you trying to become either an IGL or a co-IGL, you're trying to become an IGL or co-IGL in the first inaugural split of a POI draft where not only do you have to figure out your rotates, the teams around you from your specific POI, you're going to have to try to figure it out every single match day for the different teams, different POI. It's going to be great. You're basically jumping directly into the fire right now. It's the wildest time to try to learn to be an IGL, but like, is that a challenge you're looking forward to?
Definitely looking forward to it. I think it's actually pretty lucky because if we were landing at, we had to like pick 2 POIs, like set POIs to land at, like I'd be competing against all these IGLs that have been practicing their POIs for months, and they all know the rotates like by heart. But now that they're thrown to random POIs, at least I'm on a level playing field because they don't know what they're doing either in these new POIs. So I think it's a pretty big advantage actually to like be learning how to IGL in this new system because everyone's learning how to do it. Everyone's learning all these new POIs. So it's kind of like
that's a great point.
Like even the playing field a bit for IGLs at least.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that.
That's why he's Big E.
That's why he's Big E. I got to throw another question at you only because we talked to Slayer last week and he's thinking about spearheading this campaign. Do you think now that they changed it to the POI draft that people will start calling your championships Mickey Mouse because you didn't have to go from different POIs in the seasons before? Slayer said he might start it.
Start calling our championships Mickey Mouse because
he might start calling them Mickey Mouse. He might.
I don't know if he's doing it yet. Crazy. We fought through months of garbage RNG, like flying off drop and just like dying off rip for those POIs. Like, no, you can't do that. There's no way. That's crazy.
I'm just saying, just be prepared in case people start trying to call it Mickey Mouse.
That's how
there's no shot
the old Apex.
Yeah,
everyone knows that the POIs, they maybe help a little bit, but we probably would have won without those POIs anyways.
That's what you got to say. Well, really what you got to do is you just got to win this LAN and just be like, well, it doesn't matter because I won in both systems. So
yeah, and that would be a
on that.
Massive flex for sure.
Yeah, huge flex. Nobody could say anything.
Speaking of LAN, an important question that we have yet to ask you that we have to ask you is, are you top bunk or bottom bunk when it comes to playing on stage?
This is a big one.
Oh, do I want to stay the top row or bottom row?
Top row, bottom row.
Yeah.
What's your preference?
Bottom row.
We got a bottom row, and why?
Well, my MK player doesn't like shaky desks, and he thinks the top row shakes a little bit.
Oh.
Other than that, I like being a bit more front and center. I don't like being in the back. I think it's just more fun, to be closer to the crowd. Feels more like immersed in a way.
Interesting.
We got a good answer.
I like that.
We're actually collecting data on.
Are you?
On it's our new.
It's our new LAN player question. Is we got to figure out whether they prefer top or bottom. Slayer said top, right?
Slayer said top, and Slayer brought up the idea as well to like have a draft for which bunk you go into. Like in Final Sunday, you like the team who's doing the best obviously gets to choose which bunk they're in. I think that would be electric. I
swear they have been doing that. I swear they've been giving priority picks.
Really?
Yeah, because like they'll let us pick our spot, but like there's like a certain order, and I can't remember if it was based off placement or not. I swear it was though. I swear there was because they let the teams pick their spots like one by one. I swear it's an order of placement. I just can't remember. I think it is.
That would be electric.
They need to do
that. That would be electric if you walked out.
They need to do that.
Yeah,
they need to do
that
in front. They need to make that like an event of like the stage picks.
Yeah, like the player walkouts, like asking what booth they want. They say in front of the stage. That could be cool.
Yeah, you like you do the player walkout. They're like TSM. You know, you got Weeps in the background screaming in the mic, "This is TSM," and then you walk up. You're just like, "We're choosing." And you say your two POIs, and then like, "And we're choosing this book right here," and then the crowd just goes nuts.
that could be so cool.
Oh my god!
I see the vision. That could be. They can pair that with a POI draft. It'd be perfect.
Yeah.
It'd be perfect.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. POI drafts and your bunk draft. I love it. I love it so much. E, you want to? You got anything else?
I'll hit him with the.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's gonna be my last one. You want to hit him?
I do got to ask one more question before you go to your last one. We got to talk about the picture. We haven't even mentioned the picture.
Trap?
Yeah, let's talk about it real quick. I want the backstory on the picture.
Okay, so that was just spur of the moment. Like we were at the TSM facility in LA we were shooting content, like required content that we had to do for our new like Zenny. We had like a glasses sponsor called Zenny. We're doing stuff for them, and we were getting dinner and our camera guy was there, Brian. He's like, "Dude, you should totally just start doing some Calvin Klein shoots." And I was like, "No, that's crazy." And he's like, "No, bro, just try it." And I was like, "Screw it, we'll just try it, and if they look good, maybe probably won't post them, but we'll see what it looks like for fun." we took them.
Well,
we go and take them, and they're like, "Bro, you have to post these." And I'm like, I was so on the fence about posting those. I was like so ready to not do it, but literally everyone was telling me like, "Bro, you gotta post these. Like they're gonna farm." And I was like, I was so ready to not do it, but at the end I caved, and I was like, "No, what's the worst that can happen? Like it'll farm, but who cares?" And
yeah, it was everything I saw on the TL for like 2 weeks. Like any meme reaction to any tweet, it was just that picture, and I was like, "Good God!" It was awesome though. It's a great listen. If I had a body like that, I'm taking that picture and I'm posting it. I wouldn't even have a conversation. I would just.
Yeah, that's what my teammates were saying. They're like, "Man, bro, I'd post it instantly. I wouldn't even debate."
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Everyone said that
twice.
They were all like, "Yeah, bro. If I had those pictures, I'm just no.
I'm
question.
just throwing them out there." Yeah, 100%. All right, now we got the picture out of the way. All right, you can hit him.
All right, so we've already had you on, so you already answered the question that I ask everybody when they come on. But I have a second question that I ask everybody when they come on their second time, and that is from like right now to like the last time that you came on the pod. You remember that was in your life?
Gosh, that was a long time ago. Was that before? Was that the start of 2023? If I had to guess.
It was a while. I remember that there was we had asked you on the last interview about like internet hate, and I think it was when you guys had placed sixth.
That was like almost 2 years ago. That's even further back than I thought.
Yeah. And so
I'm scrolling
so like
real
we were
far
talking
to see if
about
I can
that.
find it. It was September.
It was episode 6.
September 2022.
Okay, so I was up by a few months.
All right, so between from then to now, what is the most important thing you've learned?
Just in life in general, or
yeah,
Apex?
Just life in general. It can be if it's Apex, it can be Apex, but just in general.
I'd say it's the importance of working out. Honestly, like the importance of my health, I think is like translates to my gameplay a lot more than I ever thought it did before working out. That's probably the biggest thing I think is just health. Just trying to stay like trying to maintain my energy and like play for like longevity and just not like having a career that ends in 2 years. So probably the biggest thing I've learned over the last year is just taking care of my health and how important it is.
There we go.
Plus the sick ass thirst traps.
Yes,
can't forget those.
That's the real reason.
Can't forget those.
For that
That's
one
the
picture.
real reason. That's right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's Verhulst, man. It's Verhulst, man. So great to have you back on. It's always a pleasure. Whenever you want to come back on, feel free. I can't wait to see how this new look TSM works out. I'm excited to watch. It's gonna be awesome to see how it works out, and we'll be rooting for you over here. And like I said, you've already come back with the trophy, but hopefully you come back with another one. How about that?
Sounds pretty good to me. Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. All right, man. Thanks for hopping on. We appreciate
you guys. Always good talking to you guys. Appreciate it so much.
All right, ladies and gents, that was Verhulst. Shout out to Verhulst for hopping back on the podcast. Always great to talk to one of the greats in Verhulst. And it's always awesome, too, I close out every interview saying, hopefully next time we see you've won a trophy. He's the first one to successfully win the trophy and then come back on the show. So shout out Verhulst for being the first one to do it.
Absolute
for a year
legend.
deep.
Absolute legend.
Yeah. Yeah, shout out to that. He was the first one to do it. Okay, we got some voicemails here. I tweeted out on the Apex the Podcast account your hottest take coming into who's going to win Split 2 LAN. Some of the voicemails were from last week, but I believe I got 3 from this week of people saying which team that they think are going to go in and win it. First one comes from Nar Ivy. Let's go, Nar Ivy.
What's up, fellas? Nar here. Short-time listener, medium fan. Scrim streams. It was good times being able to talk it up with the fellas and watch the games. Lastly, if you guys had to choose 3 people from any esport to be inducted into like the theoretical esport Hall of Fame, who would it be and why? All right. Thanks. Bye. Love you.
He hit us with the I love you at the end there.
Love you
there
too.
We go. Nice.
Appreciate you.
Nice. Love you too. Who would you put? Who would you put in there?
Esports Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to be honest. I don't know a whole lot about much other esports, to be honest. But I feel like you, obviously you got to throw Scump in there because like he's a legend. Feel like the argument can definitely be made for Formal. Feel like he's won a champion, and I don't even know how many different games he's won champions in. And then like what Faker is that guy in League of Legends?
Yeah, I don't know who Faker is, but everybody tells me he's the greatest esports player of all time.
Apparently, he has like a skin being put into League, and like his bundle and everything in total is $500.
That's so sick.
That's baller.
I mean, not sick, but sick.
Yeah, but I mean,
like at the same time.
Yeah, that's pretty baller. That like, that's a thing.
I would probably go Scump. I don't really watch too many esports outside of this one either.
Yeah, I really don't.
So if I mean, you got to throw one Apex guy in there at this point, right? It's got to be Hal.
I thought you said other game. Obviously, but yeah, Hal's definitely
in there. And then I'd probably just go Faker as well. I just don't know too many other ones. Formal was a good shout out though. Formal's a really good shout out.
I do what I can.
Yeah. I wish I knew more other esports. I just don't.
I feel like I put on like a rather good showing for somebody who like doesn't pay attention to other esports. I feel like I really like teed up for that one.
Yeah, perfect. It was easy. I love it. Shout out Nar Ivy. Maybe I just need to start watching other esports. Maybe that's what the way to figure that out is. But as of right now, I mean, if I had to just go Apex, I think you go Hal.
Yep. I feel like that's non-debatable too.
0. Who would be the third?
I mean, you got Hal, 0. I feel like both of those are safe locks.
Reps maybe?
I feel like I would if we're talking like strictly competitive Apex, right? Wait, okay, that's an important distinction. Are we talking about Apex as a specific esport? The esports side of Apex. Yeah. Okay. Because I was going to say that I would throw ACU on there, but if we're talking just comp, I wouldn't.
A content creator Hall of Fame. Yeah. We'll probably see one of those in like 25 years.
There we go. Something like that.
Yeah.
But okay, so obviously you got Hal, 0, and then really,
I'll throw Naughty in there.
You're throwing Naughty?
That was a joke, but like I would.
You would? Okay.
My personal Hall of Fame.
I feel like you could make the argument for Sweet, even though
I was thinking that too.
But like, he hasn't won a LAN. Like it's.
But see. Yeah, that's the tough part. But also, like Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl. You know, Charles Barkley never won an NBA Finals. There are players who are really good who never won, and he's still playing. So the opportunity's still
for sure
there. But yeah, I think you might have to throw in Sweet in there because even like the impact that he's had on the community too is big. I think he brings a lot to what we look at when it comes to Apex Legends.
For sure.
So I'd throw him in there. I'd throw him in
And
there.
then
That's a great
there we
question.
go.
What were you? Did you have another one?
Yeah, I was gonna say who I was thinking about who's gonna be that fourth person, but you picked Naughty. I don't know. Like I love Naughty. Naughty's the boy, but I don't know if I can put him on the Rushmore. But I don't know who else I don't know who I'd put on that fourth slot.
0, right?
No, we already had 0. 0 how.
Oh, we already had 0.
0 how. Sweet. And then it's like filling in that fourth.
I'd probably get, if I had to take out Naughty.
If you don't have Naughty, who is it?
I put Reps.
Reps?
Reps is like, yeah, I'd put Reps in because it's like the Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Scottie Pippen was also a fantastic player and like in his own right.
Yeah.
And was there, you know, throughout the entire or most of his career. So I'd probably go Reps.
Okay. I think
you can even say Verhulst
I'll
if
take
you
the
wanted
flip
to.
side of that. I'll go Jen. I go Mr. Jen Burton.
That works. Yeah, that works. That works. I would like to see a Hall of Fame that didn't just consist of like the entire 2 rosters of TSM and Dark Zero at some point. You know, that'd be great. And I think we'll get there because we're very early in this esport. But yeah, so that's a great question. That's a great voicemail. Next one comes from Ryan.
Hey, boys. Hope your day's going good. Big shout out to you guys. Really appreciate the podcast and all. Shout out to Wyatt. I sent you a reel about the Broncos ages ago, and you actually responded. That was pretty surreal, to be fair. Again, thank you for the podcast, and just let you know your reach is pretty far. I'm from all the way in New Zealand.
Nice.
Let's go.
I try tuning every episode.
That's a W.
My question is to Enoch. Just curious, what actually happened with you in coaching? I might have missed the episode, but I don't know if you touched on it. Doesn't seem like there's any bad blood. I just want to know the story of what happened. Cheers.
Coaching.
Yeah, so what happened with that is we ended up making the decision. So at the time, like Chaotic and Zach didn't want to play with design. So then we ended up dropping design, and then we ended up going with Naughty after that. And so when we had picked up Naughty at the same time, PvP had become available as like a potential coaching option, and that was something that like Zach wanted to do because it would give them like the old like C9 like vibes that they had when they were like popping off and playing really well. And I was like supportive of it, and I was like, okay, yeah, like let's make it happen, because I felt like it was the best decision for the team. And so I was like still coaching, but then PvP was helping out. And then so they ended up doing that. And then towards like the end of that season, they went with PvP in the coaching comms for like the last tournament. And then like it kind of went not the greatest, like it went pretty bad. And there was like a contesting stuff that ended up happening that I wasn't like the biggest fan of, but you know, it is what it is. But then ultimately PvP ended up going a different direction and that's when he ended up, I believe, getting picked up by Furia. And then it was in that off season that I started doing a lot more individual coaching. And then when I realized how much I enjoyed doing that, I didn't want to keep that responsibility and commitment to coaching for Pro League. And so then I ended up like stepping down and like removing myself from the position. And then they ended up picking up Talmadge after that. Because like at the time, like I knew that I wasn't like if I was being like completely honest, I never gave like coaching the time commitment that I should have for that position. And so if I wasn't going to be able to like commit as much as I needed to in order for the team to be successful, I would have rather somebody else do it. And so then that's when I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to step down. And then they ended up picking Talmadge up. And then that was a really good fit, obviously. And then they've had a good amount of success since then.
Would you ever go back?
No.
Like not specifically to that roster, but like just to coaching in general?
If I made enough from coaching that I didn't have to stream as much, potentially. But at the time, like it wasn't like worth the time versus like other things that I could be like like spending my time doing.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
But
that makes sense.
It was a good experience. I definitely think that it could have gone substantially better. I definitely learned a lot from it. And definitely enjoyed every part of it. And ended up creating one of my favorite teams because like I'm a big DSG guy. I think that roster is phenomenal, and that wouldn't have happened if I didn't drop design. So
go watch that episode.
Yeah, that
Great
was a fun. That, when we had design back, that was
a great
fire.
episode.
That was literally so fresh. That was so fresh from the dropping, and I literally was just like, "Yo, you want to do podcasts?" And then got him in here. He was ready to go.
Yeah, no, it is crazy how that roster formed like right after that, and it has been like you've been documented. You can go back and listen to the time that roster was formed.
The whole time been like, this
You've
team
always
is so
supported
good.
that team.
I was like, this team is so good. I've always like literally. I'm not even shitting you. The day we dropped them, like design scrimmed with them, and the moment I saw that team, and I saw design on horizon with a 30-30, and they were posted up in a Skyhook building, and they ended up winning that game. And I like the first time I was watching them play, I was like, this team is going to be really, really good. Like it just like the combination of design and enemy, and then putting a guy as talented as Timmy along with him as a third. It was like from the moment I saw it, I was like, yeah, that team is good.
Yeah, no, since day one, you've always had them in your predictions, always been like hyping them up, always excited. So it's crazy. It's a weird domino to fall, but it's a domino nonetheless.
Yeah.
So shout out to Jeremy for the question. Let's move on to the next one here.
I do think, I very much do think that there's a strong chance that I would have been able to like go to LAN and had like that whole experience and like coaching it if we kept Tyler and we did our best to make it work, even though there were those problems there, and giving it a shot instead of like doing it in the timing we did. I definitely think that would have been an interesting run, but like ultimately at the end of the day, like I don't regret anything because I'm stoked with where everything is at with everything now. Because like last LAN, all like the like chaotic was participating with C9. Design was there with DSG, and Zach was there with E8. And then you can even throw Naughty, who I coached for like a half a second, like very barely, and he's there with C9. And so it's cool to see all of those boys like getting it done and making it happen.
Hell yeah. The Enoch coaching tree. All right, shout out to Jeremy for that voicemail. Let's go on to the next one here. This one comes from Imperial Hole.
With this phony and snipe stuff going on, it had me thinking, what are the top three, or you guys' top three Apex comp scene beefs? Like legit beefs, because I feel like a lot of stuff like Howl and Sweet or whatever are not really beefs. They're just buddy-buddy at the end of the day. But what are your top three actual bad blood Apex comp scene beefs?
Oh, see, I see it like, I wish I wasn't in the Twitter game in like the sphere of Apex for a long time. So I missed out on probably a ton of beefs. Do you know any?
Dude,
off
I'm
the
going to
top
be
of your
honest
head?
with you. I'm trying to think of, and I like outside of like contest beefs, like I can't really think of any. Like obviously, like there's people who just don't like each other.
Yeah.
But I'm very unprepared to answer such a question. I don't like follow it like that closely. And if I do, it's like something that like I like maybe think about for like a few seconds, and then it's just like so far gone out of anything that I'd care about. I just don't like. It's not that. It's not like that for me.
I just don't know. I just don't know any. I guess the best beef and actually the funniest beef for me was, and it wasn't even a beef because he hopped on the show right after Design Enoch, right?
Dude,
hopping on the pod right after.
That was fire.
That was so
Everything
great.
about that was such a good episode.
Great.
That was so funny.
It was the best.
And see,
I made the
Tyler
little video.
is like, people were like, oh, like he dropped you, and now he's like being like a fan after, when I was like hyping the boys up. And it's like, I've got an aim assist sweatshirt. Like I've been supporting the boys for an absolute grip. And Tyler's one of like the few people from the Apex scene who I've actually met in real life and like hung out with. And so like, yeah, like that beef was pretty funny. And I wouldn't even say it was like, I never had any beef with it. Cause even everything I put on Twitter, I was always just like hyping him up.
Yeah. It's also just a weird situation too, because it was like, it wasn't just you doing it. It was like the team had
like,
kind of like come together.
No, I was in a situation where it was my friend, but then two of my players didn't want to play with it. And so it was like, it doesn't
like,
matter.
Hey, go do this.
Like, it doesn't matter how like bad, like I wanted to like not have it go that way. Sometimes you just got to make the decision that's the best for the team. And so that's what you got to do.
Yeah, no, that'll be my answer to the beefs. I honestly, I wish I knew about more beefs, and I'm sure there's like you said, guys who just probably don't like each other that much behind the scenes. But I'm not in the know with most of that. I'll probably do some I'll have to do some research on some beefs. I'll ask Jayhawk. He'll know the beefs. I'll ask him to tell me like what were the craziest beefs, because he's been in the scene, in the know for a long time. But yeah, my answer, I'll just go Design Enoch, because it led to a great episode, and it led to one of the best teams in the scene right now with DSG. So shout out that beef. Last one here. We've got one from Kevin.
What's up, guys? This is Kevin. Just wanted to give you a call ahead of Split 2 kicking off. I got to go to the Split 1 LAN out in LA.
Nice.
It was insane. Had a blast. I really think that the Apex Pro scene is only continuing to grow. You know, we have not reached our peak. We still have a lot ahead of us. So a lot of excitement still in store. And I don't think I've ever been more excited for a Split than I am for this upcoming one. The obvious pick to win everything is going to be the super team. Zero, Howe, and Jim Burton. They're clearly the best players with their roles of any team in the world. I don't know how you could argue for another team even being close. But with that said, I think what would be best for the scene is for a team like SSG to sort of assume that DZ villain role that we've seen previously. I think Phony, no matter what you think about him, it's clear to see that he's a pretty polarizing figure at least in fan circles when it comes to comp Apex. I think he's going to use some of the backlash that he's received as motivation. And I think that roster of Phony, Koifel, and Zainu winning and being dominant would be an amazing storyline for Apex going forward. Curious to hear what you guys think. That's all I got. Keep up the great work, and really excited for this upcoming split. See ya.
Likewise, super excited. Yeah, I think, we just talked about it in the beginning part of the show, but for SSG and more for Phony specifically, the only way to combat anything about anybody, even if that matters to you, whatever that matters to you, is to just go out there and win. If you go out there and win, anything, any opinion, whatever public opinion people have of you kind of just starts to dissolve. People have had an opinion about Hal being like over the top sometimes with his teammates, whatever, what have you, but he wins, so people just forget about it. Same thing can be said for Phony if he goes out there and he wins. I don't know if that even matters to Phony. So it's really just a moot point at the end of the day if he just doesn't give a fuck. But if they go out there and they win, then that all kind of just dissolves. And I do agree, like having a team like SSG come in here and dominate, do well, win, like Kevin was saying, I think that would be good for the scene too, because that adds another fold to the, NA dominance chapter of the book that we've been writing for what seems like forever. Obviously Reject just wins the last one, but I think it would be interesting
NA
to
on
see
top.
a team like SSG. Yeah. SSG win. So, what do you think, E?
Yeah, I think SSG out of all the teams, I would say like SSG and LG. Out of all of the teams that could be the super team killer, I got DSG. I think you got to have them in there. I think you throw in the Shuby knocked, dropped. I think you throw in them in there. I think you throw in the new EA roster of Slayer, Luxford, and Zach. I think those are potential. And then, SSG. And then the former Exet team. I think all of those rosters all have like, I said LG, right? It's like definitely those guys.
I think so.
Yeah, like I think
so.
all
If
of,
you didn't,
yeah,
LG.
all of those rosters I think have like a strong chance to be that super team killer because they all have players that are playing in their roles exceptionally well, and then those are all teams that play exceptionally well together. And a lot of the times, as we talked about, is like it doesn't matter how much talent you have on one team. If one team has less talent, but they play better as a team and they play in their roles better than the more talented team does, and they're playing more cohesive than the more talented team, then that team is going to win. And especially when it comes to like a BR and some like in a game like Apex Legends, where it's not that hard to tell who you're fighting, especially if people aren't like mixing up the skins all the time. I think there's just going to be so much like pressure and attention, and like everybody everybody wants to be the team that kills Falcons. Everybody's going to want to be the team that like stops them, and everybody wants to be the team that is better than them. And so it'll be interesting to see if we see that team get focused a little bit more, if players make different plays, if they know that it's them compared to like other teams, or if they're just going to show up and be as dominant as they look like they're going to be on paper. Because like there's definitely like there was like the one scrim that I saw where they had like over 100 points and the next closest team had like 60 something. Obviously, like when you look at that, you're just like, oh yeah, it's just going to be like that all season, right? It's like, no, like this is a BR. Like anything can happen, and we could see this team, like it would be very unlikely, but they could show up and just have a bad stretch where like they're not able to put it together. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that this team is going to be an absolute issue because I mean, you put Hal, who's a guy who all he does is want to win, and then you put him on a team with the core of like the only team that's stopped him from winning a LAN other than like this time around. So previously, like it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. NA is gonna be a party for sure. Okay, well, ladies and gents, once again, shout out to everybody who sent in some voicemails. We really do appreciate it. I'm gonna start tweeting out what I want, like a question or a topic for everybody to send in voicemails on. I'm only doing that to get people to send in voicemails. If you want to send in a voicemail about anything, last week we took one about pizza toppings. It is right there. It is available. Feel free to send it in at any time that you wish, and or please, we just love hearing from the listeners out there. So once again, you can click on the link. It's on Twitter. It's inside of our link tree. It's all over the place. You click it, allow access to microphone, record up to 1 minute and 30 seconds, and send it in. Okay, ladies and gents, we're going to round out the show with the heart to heart and send you guys on the rest of your week. Let's get it. All right, here we are, ladies and gents. It is heart to heart time. Heart to heart time. Who wants to go first? You got it? I got it?
I can get it.
Get it.
So, dude, I mean, I know I'm gonna sound like an absolute broken record, bro.
Wait, is it gratitude?
I'm grateful up in this piece tonight.
Yes, go.
I really just am. Like, I would say that the biggest thing is that I would encourage everybody to do is just like focus and do your best to like maintain your internal like energy and like your emotional state, and just do your utmost to, regardless of what's going on, grounding yourself in like a positive emotional state. And then regardless of what's happening, what's going on, holding on to that positive emotional state and just staying in that regardless of what happens. Because I know that it might not always seem like it, but regardless of what's going on, you can decide that you're just going to have a good attitude the whole time. And like, yeah, there's like unfortunate things that happen. But just because unfortunate things happen doesn't mean that you got to get twisted about it. And I think that's like one of the things that I've been getting a lot of practice in, is there's a lot of unfortunate things that happen when I play Apex Legends for like 15 hours a day. There's a lot of unfortunate moments that can pop up. And whether or not I having like a fun time hanging out, just enjoying the time and vibing, or Mr. Poopy Pants, is all a matter of like how I decide to handle it. And the more time I spend handling it in a better way, like the more fun I have and the more RP I gain, and just everything is just better. And so I just get to get out here and I get to build towards like my future in a emotional state that I get to have the choice of, that I'm gonna like choose and maintain. And then I just get to do my thing and have a good time. And I'm enjoying it. And I'm grateful. And it's building season.
It's gratitude, baby. It's gratitude. Okay, I'm gonna do my heart to heart. It's not really like an actual heart to heart by any means. It's just I guess it kind of is a heart to heart. LAN was so awesome, and I met so many cool people. A lot of the listeners out there, but two of the people that I met that are just sick, and I like consider actual friends now, Jumba and Jayhawk. I guess the heart to heart part of it would be that I'm just super grateful for them. Me and Jayhawk are basically gaming every day. I've gotten Jayhawk to play the most Apex Legends he's played in like a long time, just from like being in Discord with him. I think he could get Masters this season. Decent player. But that's not even what I'm talking about here. We've been playing so much games together that we started a Call of Duty Zombies Discord, and we're going to be trying to hit every single Easter egg in a row. And then like Jayhawk dropped like 100 bones just to get Black Ops 3 with like Zombie Chronicles. So be on the lookout for some Jayhawk, Wyatt B, Jumba zombie content. Just be on the lookout for it, because we're obsessed all over again. Like we're kids. We're just out here. We stayed up till I think 3 a.m. playing Verhulst this weekend. So just be on the lookout for that. Just keep your eyes open, keep your eyes peeled. We're gonna have some zombie stuff coming out. I'm so excited that I went on Etsy and I found zombie posters of like the different perk machines and stuff, and I bought one already. I need to chill, I need to relax, but it's just like once something takes a hold of me, it takes a hold of me. And I want people to understand we are going to destroy all of these Easter eggs. I've never done them. Jayhawk's done them. I've never done them because I was always trying to beat like my round record. I never really cared about Easter eggs. But now that I've watched the videos, I'm deep in there. So be on the lookout for that. We've got zombie stuff coming out soon. Probably going to live stream it. I don't know if we're going to actually make a video of it, but you can follow us along on our journey. And I guess the heart to heart part of it is those guys are awesome. Jumba, Jayhawk, they're the dudes. Shout out them. They're ballers. They're dogs. So that's my heart to heart. I'm just excited. I'm excited to game with the boys, what I've always wanted to do. Ladies and gentlemen, that should just about do it for this episode of the Apex, the podcast. Shout out to you guys for tuning in. Once again, you can send on in a voicemail. We would really appreciate it. We love hearing from you guys out there. Got somebody from New Zealand today. Let's go. That's awesome. Send in a voicemail if you got the time, if you've got the opportunity. We want to hear your takes, your thoughts, all of that stuff. We also appreciate all of the likes and subscribes on YouTube. Thank you guys so much. And all of the downloads on all of the podcasting platforms. If you really want to help us out, give us a review. It's the greatest thing you could do for the show. If you want to help us out on YouTube, hit a subscribe, like the video, all of that good, juicy stuff. Ladies and gents, we will catch you guys next week for another episode of the Apex the Podcast. And if I'm not mistaken, there should be a very big announcement on next week's episode of the Apex the Podcast. So keep your ears peeled. I don't even know if that's a phrase. Keep your ears open. Leave them wide open because things are happening next week. We'll catch you guys next week. See ya.